first off, explain to our lovely viewers what you're doing.
I'm drinking and giving a rant on Elden Ring. By rant, I mean a review.
A rant view, as you might say.
Yeah, just a one cuff, one take review. As of now, I have finished Elden Ring. I have, and I want to make sure I have this correct. I have played 113 hours worth of Elden Ring. This is my review after that much bullshit. Okay, so background of the game itself. It was released this year, right? I think it was this. Yeah,
it was this year, February.
Oh my god.
No, sorry.
It was released.
Time flies.
You know how we remember that? Horizon Forbidden West was released this year, and everyone forgot about that game. So.
It's been 6 months though. It released in February.
February 28th, if I remember.
It feels
correctly.
wild that it's 6 months.
Half a year, yeah.
Anyway, it released this year. It's by the company FromSoft, who's known for making Dark Souls, the series, and Souls, like the origin of Souls-like game genre, right? Bunch of difficult games with specific gameplay mechanics that everyone rages at.
Like Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
It's very weird that people call Hollow Knight a Souls-like.
Souls-like, yeah.
Just because it has somewhat hard like bosses.
Right.
No, and the death mechanic. That's like the only similarity.
I think this is a personal side take, but I think having the requirements of difficult bosses and return mechanics for like lost like death, I think are the basis for calling yourself a Souls-like, and I am fine with it so long as they don't milk it. Like they don't try and make that the marketing of the game.
Yeah, I think if you advertised Hollow Knight as a Souls-like, you'd be wrong. But you're like calling it one isn't inherently.
It's not
off.
inherently wrong. Yeah, it's not off. Anyway, so this game is supposed to be, at least during the early interviews when they were talking about it, the sort of like magnum opus of what Miyazaki and the company like built up to now. And it's supposed to be an open world version of Souls-like games. It's not set in the same universe, it's its own universe, yada yada yada. Dark, deep, depressing. You play as a dude that's supposed to go in. You play as an undead. Is it? It's not undead. Yeah, they're
tarnished.
No, they're alive. They're alive.
Yeah, they're alive.
It's like the one Souls game where you're alive.
It's the one Souls game where you're alive and not actually undead. You go back to a crumbling kingdom based on I don't want to. It's so weird to get into the lore of this, and I don't want to in the background section. But religion, like worshiping, they follow the Golden Order, which is follows this one Erd tree, and the Erd tree is dying, and they're like, hey, we need a new Elden Lord because these fuckers, all 5 of these children of the Elden Lord are like fighting amongst themselves. So you have to go kill like a bunch of them and become the new big baddie. Whatever. Do your job. Kill them all. And so that's the whole premise of the game. It's very open exploration, open world, do anything in any order you want, except not really. But we'll get into that later. Yeah, so there's the background. Is there anything I've missed for like context before we go in?
I think I'm getting it.
Yeah. I will be honest, if you want, like, I'll give a TLDR now. If there's ever a Souls game to play, this is the one. Like, if you've never played a Souls game before, this is the game you should play at the very least.
Cool.
Anyway, moving on. Second question. Can you pet the dog? And maidens? Can you pet the dog? Petting is a strong word. There are canine-like creatures in the game. I personally wouldn't give them the categorical description of cute. I think
you can pet them with your big sword.
Yeah, so you can kind of pet them with a big sword, and they stop scaring you. And I think that to me is He's worth it. So no, there's no friendly animals in the game, to my knowledge. Yeah, no friendly animals specifically.
Well, no, there's one.
Sorry.
There's one. There's the Pope.
Well, there's two.
Oh,
there's Torrent.
the Pope. You're right. The horse, you can't pet the horse though.
Well, you can't pet the Pope either.
You can receive a blessing from him, and he like kind of leans his head towards you as you have your arm. Okay, well, yeah, you can't pet the Pope, but he is a Pope, so you know what? Whatever. The Pope's eternal. So no, you can't pet the dog. Maidens.
Damn.
At the end of the game, depending on the ending, you do get a maiden. I am very happy to say 110 hours, and I finally got a goddamn maiden in that game. I'm sick of it. Okay, real quick. Miyazaki fucking knew what he was doing when he designed the game, and the first 10 minutes just have someone come up to you and go, damn, your maidenless is shit, bro. He knew his target audience. And I hate him all the more for it. Anyway, now that we've answered those questions, let's go into the first one, performance.
Do you mind if I interject with my console player experience?
Go ahead.
It was fine. I experienced very little graphical or gameplay hiccups.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like from launch day, pretty much nothing bad. I was playing on PS5, so like most modern hardware, the most modern console hardware.
In my short time with a PS5, I agree. It handles fine enough. There's not any real thing from it.
It's like
network connection was a bit slow, in my opinion, for the PS5 version compared to the PC one. That's about it.
Yeah.
So online play sometimes may have like some interesting hiccups on the console version, but other than that, it feels fine enough.
Now.
All right. So for the PC, where do I begin with this? The game.
The anti-cheat, perhaps.
So the game is a multiplayer game. And it's designed that way because you should be able, in all of the Dark Souls games, there is some mechanic. Scratch that. In all the mainline Dark Souls games, there is some mechanic where you can summon another player from online, be it like a specific person you know, or just a random, to help you out through the journey, or maybe clear a boss or something, so that you can experience the game together. Usually this makes this game a lot easier and more manageable, and to balance this out, they also introduce a mechanic where you can invade other people's worlds as an enemy whenever they summon other people, so that they have like there's still some form of challenge or like uncertainty, you know. And it's before I get into that, I just a surface level thing. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's one of the things that they developed that was really fun. But in this game, online performance for the PC, I think when a person is logged in is fine. I would argue even more fine than PS5. I have fewer dropped connections. People get summoned faster, yada yada yada. That is where the benefits end. This game has frame stutters like no one else's fucking business. It's one thing for me to like go on a 10-minute rant on why improper frame pacing is bad for a console or PC player. And sorry, go ahead.
What's frame pacing?
When the game runs, they'll give you an FPS, right? Usually you'll, like for movies, when you watch a movie, it's at 24 frames per second. On games, sometimes it's 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. That means how many times the screen refreshes, like with new data, like moving your character or updating, like where just graphically updates the screen a second. I think most people are fine with 30 60 is really like smooth. You can see it. It's very, very smooth. If you look at PC players, they'll be like, yeah, 120 is the smoothest. And a discerning eye would be able to tell. And I think it's pretty smooth, but it's not necessary. And everything higher is fake. No one actually notices the difference. It's false. But that's frames per second. So that's frame rate, right? The rate of how fast it's updating. Frame pacing or frame timing is the specific from one frame to the next, how long did it take, right? Like specifically between 2 frames. Usually in a proper 60 FPS game, so 60 times refresh rate a second, it is 6.66 milliseconds. It's supposed to be even, like clockwork, exactly 6.66 milliseconds every time the frame updates with new data. It moved your character a little bit, it started an animation for an attack, yada yada yada. What arguably is worse for a player, and what most people conflate with a lag spike, is the game halts on a frame for like way longer than it's supposed to, and then goes back to being smooth of like 60 frames or whatever. So like it was like 6.6, 6.6, 6.6, and then for one frame it stalled, something was loading, a background thing didn't render in, or maybe your like save data is like trying to write or something happens, and it stays on a frame for like 100 milliseconds, right? And then it continues on. And that like feels like a huge like pause and then jolt. And that's way more noticeable to someone than like a slower FPS, because it feels like hard lag. And it's perfect that you asked that question, because that's what like Elden Ring has. It's not slow frame rate as if the game is unoptimized and doesn't run well on hardware. It's that it just stutters. Like it has that lag spike and continues, and it has it every few fucking seconds. And it's so long. Sometimes it gets so egregious when I'm playing that it's multiple seconds. Like it's halt 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and continue. And it is, for a game as precise in combat requirements as Elden Ring, it is a fucking nightmare. It should not be tolerated.
I have a question.
I may have an answer.
I know it's been like a month or 2 since you finished playing Elden Ring. Were those issues persistent throughout? Like, did they never find a way to amend that?
Fun fact. I'm so glad you asked that, Colin. I'm so glad. So, me being me and having nothing better to do than being a fucking nerd, I decided to go into and research why it is that it exactly has those frame pacing issues, and whether or not they were going to have a fix for it. Turns out the reason why consoles, and including the new Steam Deck, doesn't have this issue as nearly as much is because of what's called shader rendering. I don't want to go into the whole details of how it works, but basically the game like preloads in its save data, or in the huge 60 gigabyte install, right? As you play it, every scenario, right? If you turn this direction in this castle and look at this pillar specifically, it'll save like how it looks essentially to some temporary place in the game data, right? So that if you are in that exact scenario again, it doesn't have to like go through all the mathematics to recreate it in like the CPU or whatever. Yeah.
So it's creating a shortcut for itself.
It literally is. That's how it works. And that was a new thing that was introduced into their game engine. This is still running on the same game engine used for Dark Souls 3. The same one. Like Unreal Engine 4.27 with modifications for their bunch of nerdy, unimportant stuff. But they have shader compilation for this new DX12 API. Again, more nerdy stuff, doesn't matter. Point is, they have shortcuts that they save constantly to your disk for every single minuscule scenario. Fighting this enemy using this animation for this specific point in this time of day, save it for something else, right? It's called pre-compiled shaders. So it compiles it as it's doing it, and so that the next time you run it, it won't stutter. Right?
Right.
Now, the cool thing is that if you have the same exact hardware, they can pre-compile it on a server cluster somewhere way away, constantly 24/7. And so that way, you don't have those stutters as much because they're predicting what situations you may have.
So PS5s that are all made in a factory.
The exact same way, for the exact same time, can be pre-compiled.
Interesting.
So that's how they do it.
But
and
you
that's why
can't
the
do
Steam
that
Deck,
for your Linux
PC.
to my shitty Dell, you know?
Yeah. So every PC has slightly different hardware, and so you can't do it for all of them. And so that's why PC has this huge issue. Now, of course, they can still do it for some general scenarios. And also, as you play the game, the more times you repeat a scenario, the more it precompiles. So the beginning area, after I hit my 40th hour, and after they sent updates out, is very smooth. Very smooth. And I'll talk about the beginning area more later down the line. But as you get to like late game, it gets egregious. It is so bad. The fight against Millennia, as I'm sure people who are here watching the stream can attest, sometimes is fucking impossible with the amount of lag spikes it has.
Yeah, I knew you barely beat her.
Skin of my teeth, dude. Skin of my teeth.
1 week chuckle, and that's exactly what the fuck I deserve for that joke.
But yeah, so I found out about it. They still are trying to do performance patches for it, except FromSoft is slow with updates as always. But that's that for performance, like running the game fast on a computer or a console. There are also a bunch of bugs not relating to like video performance that I found. And this was, most of them were very much in like the first few weeks of Elden Ring being out, and I think almost all of them are patched. So while I will say they did have quite a few bugs coming into the game, they were very quick to update it, and I won't fault them for it. It is, polishing wise, it's not nearly as polished as Hollow Knight. Like, not in the same ballpark as polished, but it's way more polished than like.
Gosh, Sam, you don't have to compare every game to Hollow Knight.
It's way more polished than like Far Cry 4, you know. I just realized most people here have not played the game Far Cry 4.
I have. I hated it.
Yeah.
Probably for lack of polish.
Point is, it's a very polished game. It's not a complete game.
Right.
And that pretty much, I want to end it there for performance. Does anyone have any questions or stuff before I move on to the next part, or any stuff I didn't talk about that they wanted to hear?
I have a concern.
A concern? All right, go for it.
You said you eventually got a maiden.
Yes.
How true is that?
In the game that the whole thing started from. Yes. Not in real
Samuel
life.
beat Elden Ring, and they sent him a girlfriend.
Yo,
Okay.
could you imagine if a company released the game on the premise that will give you a partner if you beat the game?
That's literally a dating sim, Sam.
No. I mean a real partner, not
now,
just a.
now hold on. We could make
Real
an
to
argument
them.
for Elden Ring being an effective dating sim. There's an argument to be made there.
Stop. We haven't started yet. Stop.
They send you a girlfriend. She's blue and has 4 arms.
But hey, we haven't gotten to the story part. There's a whole section right here. It says it right there.
Another big source of like the lag spikes is from the like online and like anti-cheat.
Yes. The anti-cheat also plays a huge role in lag spikes, and to the point, one of the big fixes you can do is play offline. If you switch the toggle in the settings to play offline and restart, not only is loading into areas ridiculous, like PS5 times quick, but there's a lot less lag spikes because it's not like constantly checking if you have any like cheating software, or if you're connecting to someone so that they have to introduce a invader or something like that.
I would just tag on, I think was majorly impressive for this game. Like, not the best I've ever seen, but to have a world like as filled as it did and minimal loading for all of it.
I highly agree.
Yeah.
I think loading times were by far one of it's one of the points I noticed when I was fighting the same boss over and over in offline mode. I genuinely paused and thought, man, it's really cool how fast this game can load sometimes. But in like, it's nothing to give an award for, you know? It's not like a bottom up PS5 game where they just
Funnily enough, I would give that award to the game that came out a week prior, Horizon Forbidden West.
Okay, you don't have to compare everything to Horizon Zero Dawn, Colin.
Forbidden West, hey, different game.
Whatever. Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
Forbidden West can't earn any awards if no one played it.
I played it. I 100%ed it.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. Visuals. So we're switching over to continue on from the tail end of performance. As I mentioned, this game uses the same quote-unquote game engine. So basically, what the animators and creators use to design the game, the software that they use, that's the game engine. And updates to that, like major updates to that software, affect how optimized the game can run and also how beautiful the game can look. It's like Disney getting a new animation software for like the first time in 10 years, and you can see individual hair strands just reflecting the sun. Like that's to the level of how like a jump it is for game studios at the same time. Unfortunately, for this game, they didn't get a new game engine. They just stuck with the previous one from Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. Not that there's inherently anything bad with it. I've seen worse game engines. It's just that with the PS5 out and it targeting new hardware, it looks, some stuff like textures or pop-in can look a bit dated. That being said, with that concession out of the way as like a downside, the art direction, whoever does the artwork for this game needs a Pulitzer fucking prize. I can distinctly remember specific areas in the world because of how striking they looked, even on old hardware or old game engines. Dude, everything from like visually seeing the effects of like scarlet rot on the Kaled area versus like the intro area versus the Weeping Peninsula. Like, I remember in my head specifically audibly gasping at my screen when I went to the capital city of the entire game and like seeing its vast expanse in that like one intro part when you walk in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, damn, that looks cool as shit. Like, this is the most developed. It was like Arn Orlando all over again.
I was watching you were streaming that when it happened, and we were at like, it was like at one brief time where I had gotten ahead of you in the game, and you got to that part, and you were just like kind of looking around, seeing if there was anything, like any item to pick up. And I remember distinctly saying, Samuel, look up. And you just tilted the camera up, and the city was like sprawled out in front of you.
I remember that scenario, and I remember in my head thinking, damn, it's really cool how detailed they got it in the distance. And as I look closer, I'm like, yo, they even have like corpses on the rooftop because of how like depressed the city, like, you know, like how in chaos the city is right now. And I looked closer, and I was like, that looks like an item icon. I was like, holy shit, you can actually traverse this entire city. Like, it isn't like Arn Orlando where it's a big city, but you can only go a specific path. This is the whole city. You can see and go to every part of the city. And like that visually was so stunning to me. I was like, there are plenty of moments where I'm just taken aback. Boss designs and character designs are beautiful and gorgeous as ever. Every person visually tells the story just by how they're designed. I hope the character designers at FromSoft got like a bonus paycheck at the end of it. It was really beautifully done. Armor and swords in this game look perfect, like a perfect mix between over-the-top anime style and like raw, battered, like real-life use. I don't know. The game looks striking. art-wise. It's great because it's not just that it looks visually striking, but it's also that the visuals with how they're designed continue telling the story that they want to tell. From here on out, it's just heavy spoilers. But yeah, everything in this game just looks so striking, and so I don't know. It just you can feel the heart put into it.
I was very
appreciate it.
impressed going into this game, and like, you know, and like pre-release information coming out, and it's like, you know, you got like a world tree and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be based around like medieval Norse-ish sort of culture. And like, yeah, there's definitely that inspiration there, but it really feels distinct. Like it feels like it's based on things, and it made its own entire new thing out of it.
You can see the urge. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game just looks striking. It doesn't look the most pretty, like lighting wise or anything, but it looks the most artistically well done.
I think it's gorgeous.
So yeah, that's visuals. Anything before I move on? So we're gonna move on to audio. Can I? All right. So Colin knows this, and I'm about to go on the same rant as I did in Sekiro.
Oh my god.
No. I'm gonna be about this, Colin. No, I am. So, in most games, with the exception of Hollow Knight and this, like a new demo I tried and a couple others, they don't. So the game sounds fine. The game sounds fine. There's some soundtracks in the background. They aren't like something you'd put in a Spotify playlist. They're not something you'd listen to while doing work, like Hollow Knight. But it's something that really lends to the emotions that you're supposed to feel in the sections you're supposed to feel them. So I say they are great. They are not amazing. They do their job. The audio for characters is pretty great. Each character has their own unique voice. They're fully voice acted, as with most other FromSoft games, I think. So it's nice. They all sound great. My one issue is during combat, there is audio for like your enemy to make noises or say dialogue or something. Right? And usually it's to make noises for like, you know, special effects, like if an explosion happens, what it sounds like, the preparation for an attack, what that sounds like, and stuff like that. It's audio that fills a fight. It sounds crunchy, it sounds nice, it sounds like it's supposed to, except for a game, to me, to be proper, I listen to audio as cue for when to do attacks. It's actually partly why a game like Hollow Knight or Nine Souls feels so nice to me, and it's because for the most part they link an audio cue with a specific attack, and so that way I know what's coming. I don't know why I am like that, it's just how I am. I think of audio cues before visual ones.
You know exactly what to do when you hear Adino versus Shaw, you know.
No, funny enough, that fight, the Hornet fight, the audio cues sometimes don't mix.
Yeah.
Like they're not linked, and it's so annoying.
The
it's
one that comes to my
I-
mind as just like really iconic for Hollow Knight is Grim, where he's like,
Yeah.
where he's like, Keshaw, and then he shoots out the bats. Iconic.
Everything from like Grim, the Mantis Lords have very very iconic battle cues, or sound cues.
Doma, Doma, Doma.
Every one of them. But in this game, as with Dark Souls 3 and as with Sekiro, they focus more on making the combat sound more fluid and more accurate than they do about game feel. And so many a times they will break sound cue principles and just use one sound cue for another attack. It's really annoying. It's very frustrating for me, but I get why they do it. It just hurts my experience with the game. It makes it harder for me.
I think in FromSoft games it can also be kind of disorienting because 90% of the combat you get into is out in like the overworld, and
Yeah.
the music doesn't really change for it. Like you fight people and it's noiseless, or there's some ambient music going on. When you get into a boss arena, they hit you with like the bombastic choir all of a sudden, and so it's like a totally different thing you have to adapt to.
It is. I agree, and I think that's a good point as well. It's just, it feels like when I'm encountering whether an overworld boss that has music or just a specific boss in general, I feel at a disadvantage because of what I rely on. And I think that is one of the subtle things that FromSoft still lingers onto for how it expects you to play. And I will get into that later, but whatever. Other than that, audio-wise, I think the game sounds fine. That's about it. I don't think there's anything spectacular that comes out at me for audio, and I think that's part of why I love it so much. For this specific game, having kind of background or muted audio, I feel plays into the emotion more of what I'm supposed to feel. There's no heroic choir. There's no feeling of like rising adrenaline in you. It's just what's it like?
Somber.
That's the word. I was thinking like, what is the term for not correct, like incorrect melancholy? Essentially, but somber. I think the word somber is the most accurate we'll get. Taking another shot. I'm gonna switch to fireball. I'm gonna be real. I'm feeling it. It is.
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
I am.
God
I
damn.
am feeling it. I am feeling it now. You penning pinching cheapskate. What is what supposed to call him? Listen to hear, you crustaceous cheapskate. Yeah.
Dost thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
Okay. Ready,
Don't
ready,
go
ready,
out
ready.
on us yet, Samuel. We still have to do the panty raid.
Yo, I'm so sad they got rid of that episode. That was so funny.
Where are we at in the outline?
Oh, 1 second. Just down to Fireball. I remembered what Fireball tastes like.
I was
now.
like, you don't like Fireball, right?
I like
you don't
it for the
drink.
first 2 times. After that, you're supposed to be drunk enough that you can't tell what it tastes like.
Yeah.
But it still burns going down. After audio comes, oh, here we go, gameplay and all the subcategories of gameplay.
The big
Okay. So, we're going into gameplay now. Before we do so, any questions?
one. How are you feeling?
Whew. I am so glad I am this drunk for gameplay.
Leveling.
Going into leveling. Okay, so gameplay. Dark Souls, the series, FromSoft games, the series, are usually RPGs. Like leveling RPGs, where you can, classic ones, you have a level with experience and you level it into something. At this point, I am going to switch it over. In this game, you can level up, as it shows here. And I'm also going to talk about progression in general. So this is stuff outside of leveling. So like flasks for healing and upgrades and stuff. I think. Okay. So I think it's fine. I think tying Estus flasks and healing items, like with Hollow Knight, like your health pool. In Hollow Knight's health pool, it's based on exploration. You have to find mask shards. And the more you find, the more you increase. So it's a matter of exploration, because they want to push exploration in Hollow Knight, right? You want to incentivize the game mechanic you feel is very strong in your game. I think, for the most part, non-leveling systems of progression in Elden Ring does that pretty well. You find more healing items or healing upgrades as you explore, and I think that's great. To an extent, I think leveling also does its job in that the more you explore, the more you find specific enemies or specific bosses, and they give you XP as you defeat them and you level. Great. So far, none of this is inherently new, and I think also, as I say that, what's also not inherently new is my issue with leveling in FromSoft games. I just kind of don't like it. The reason why I don't like it is how... What's the word for it? I don't want to say slow. It's not that it's slow, it's that it's minuscule.
Methodical.
It's not methodical. It's... I am at... So when I beat this game, this is the highest level, right? Like level 143. Most FromSoft games from 1 to like 3, like Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 3, have much lower level caps. They expect you to beat the game much earlier.
I was
and even then,
over leveled as heck when I beat the DLC for Dark Souls 1, and I was level like 80.
Yeah. And even then, when it was like you beat the game at level 60 or something, I still felt that was way too many level ups, because it felt like each upgrade was so inconsequential, you know?
It's like,
So even with
it's
this
like a
one-
huge hit at first, because like you defeat like your first couple bosses and you're like, dang, now I can upgrade like 5 levels at once.
Yeah.
And then after like level 15, it's like every single level up from there is just 1 point.
Yeah. And I think it's... So, they did it because of scaling. As things get more difficult, they don't want you to go back and farm lower level areas. What this means for an open world game is you can farm higher level areas early and just get the XP that way. But more so than that, more important than that, is that it feels like as the game progresses, your level ups matter less and less, right? And it's more so about your skill. I think this is great in a game that tries to push your skill. What I think is bad about it is that it's not reliant on skill enough that you can just forego leveling entirely. You still have to level, and you have to be specific about how you do it. And I think that aspect just turns me away from the game. I don't like it. The leveling system should be something that I help define who my character is as a combat person. If I want it to be more so like a dual wielding katana person, then I want to make it so that it shouldn't be a hassle to like level it up 100 levels just to get it to the ideal scenario. That feels reminiscent of old like Final Fantasy JRPGs or like 1990s RPGs that I don't want anymore. Like, come on, there are better ways to level a person. There are better ways to customize a character, right? Like, this isn't D&D. We can choose other things to do. So I think I've met many people who love the breathe, Sam.
You got it.
There are many people who love the leveling mechanic because of how specific or like precision you can get it. And I think that's great for them. I don't necessarily think this detracts from the game. I think it just makes it a less ideal experience for me. I think what's also an issue is that it's an issue and solution. This game incentivizes hyper builds. Like, you focus on one specific thing, and that's your only thing once you leveled it. If you notice from my levels, the two things I focus on, other than like vigor, which you're supposed to do in this game, which is your health, just increasing your general health pool, is like intelligence and mind, right? Like, those are the two things I push into the most, because that was the type of like character I wanted to build. Once you find that like you get into mid game and later game, you realize you can't diversify. Whatever you focused on, you have to stay on. Now, FromSoft knows this from their previous games. This is a very common thing in Dark Souls type games. And their fix to that is, every once in a while, if you explore correctly or find the right enemy and defeat it, you can get an item that lets you respec your character entirely no questions asked, right? And they give you not an infinite amount, but quite a few per playthrough, right? So I finished this game, and by the time I finish this game, I have unlocked 13 times to respec my character. That's a lot of times to respec your character. I abuse the hell out of this because it means I can change my style and how I progress through the leveling system. I think that's a good thing. I think that is a solution that they implemented that was fair enough. When I get into difficulty later on, I will go into the downside that it creates, or at least from the way FromSoft presents the mechanic of respecking, the downside that creates. But for now, I say it's fine. It was a patchwork solution. They did it. It works. I think leveling is archaic. I think progression in this game is great except for the leveling. And with that, I give it a pass. It's good. It's fine. Whatever. Who cares? I just want to fight. Oh man. Oh god. The room is spinning. Oh fuck.
You're sitting down,
no.
my guy.
No, I'm standing up. Sorry, I'm standing up. I didn't realize you guys didn't know this.
Grab yourself some water when you get a chance.
Yeah, I think
And maybe
after I
some
go
solid
through.
food, like a piece of bread or something like that.
He
Something
had 3 Doritos
bland.
Locos tacos. He's fine.
I had a
No,
ton of
okay,
food.
no. First of all, no. Get something plain and put it in your stomach.
It's fine. Oh shit, worse later. It's okay. I'll grab some bread. I have some bread. I'll figure something out. We're gonna take a break after crafting because crafting's pretty short. But one thing I really want to go into is exploration. I have finished leveling. Is there any questions? Questions, comments, concerns? You can't level maidens in this game.
Damn.
Yeah, sorry to be a downer.
I have I guess, yeah, I can do this as a question. Did you feel pigeonholed at all by that leveling system? Meaning that you obviously respect your character a couple times. Did you feel that the game created a scenario which that was the easiest way to go about it? Okay, I can't play this way that I have my character. I have to respec, or else I'll be throwing myself at a brick wall for hours.
I think that's a great question. I will answer half of it and save the other half for when I get to the combat session.
Okay.
Or section, not session. To answer your question, from a leveling perspective, specifically from the hard XP gain, everything, I did not feel pigeonholed in that way. In that I've spent so much levels on this, I can't respec my character and do something else because I feel like I've lost out on something, if that makes sense. I feel like if I want to do a specific build, I am not locked out of it. It's easy enough to switch, provided you have the items and you have the respec item. I think that side of it is easy enough, and I think but what I will say is they did the minimum amount to tell you that it exists. They literally, so for those of you that don't know, respecking the mechanic is locked behind most will say second, some may say third boss you encounter in the game, like major boss. Once you beat that boss, you can respec. You unlock the mechanic. They throw one text box at you saying, here's how you can respec and here's the item you need, and never mention it again unless you specifically go in your quote-unquote journal and try to find the mechanic or help again, right? I think it is criminal how little they push it. I think they should have encouraged it way more. I think it's a mechanic that they don't really have nearly as much in other Dark Souls games, and I think it's one that was like a sleeper hit. You can respec without restarting the game. That's huge in FromSoft. Like, really, really huge. I think they should have pushed it more, letting you do that. But they did the minimum amount. They said it was there. and they gave plenty of items per playthrough to let you do it.
Right.
So I'll give them a acceptable on the leveling side, and we'll get to the actual, I think, the more apt part of the question you're asking when we get to combat, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no other questions, we can move on to exploration. So
Show us
this
some
game.
gameplay while you explore.
How do you explore some place that you already discovered? Yeah? What I can show. I know what to do. There it is. Dude, I'm literally like staring daggers into my controller. This is bad. Anyway, when you start this game, then I think exploration should be I feel the best way to present it is in this light. So this area here, not the bottom peninsula over here, but like this specific like squarish looking area that's green over here is the starting area of the game. When the game was announced way back when, or when like the reveal trailer, not the announcement, but like the actual gameplay reveal trailer was announced, they offered a closed network test for everyone.
You say way back when? That was like October, my god.
Shut up. I swear time flew by more fast. In that closed network test, people only had access to this beginning area, and it like a lot of the items were mixed up, right? Because they didn't want to reveal everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the locations were all the same, very little has changed, and the people you meet are the same. It's just the items that they mixed up. In that open network test that people got slots for, specifically reviewers, they poured in about 40 hours on average into that area to generally see almost everything that there was to see in that area. And I personally would say in my playthrough, I spent about 20 solid hours here in this specific area before I moved on to the next area saying, yeah, for now I have this complete. And one of the rare things that this game does is that it entices me to come back here and discover more stuff in this area. I specifically say this to mean that exploration is a huge thing that they push in the game, and they don't push it for an empty world. That doesn't mean that it's perfect, but what it does mean is that when they say, hey, explore this area, or they entice you by saying, they start you off in this area and they just leave it as a vast open plain for you to see, right? They can even teleport to like the starting like area where you see like the first opening after you like come out the cave that you get the tutorial in. I think they do. This is not the right one.
No, it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
You can go out from here. Okay. I'm so used to just dropping down here because of that one freaking chariot. This game, in my opinion, is second to none on enticing me to explore. Every time that I go out and see a new vista, if I come out here into this, like the first time I picked up this game and I see this huge open field with a church up there, a huge bridge that's broken apart in the distance, and I can turn to the right and see a whole slew of fields, right? I think the best thing that happened to me about this game was giving me a horse and saying, yeah, just go wherever you want. And most importantly, out of all those things that it gives, it adds the last thing of there's something there. I think with a lot of open world games, they give you the, hey, there's no order. You can do whatever you want to do. See that mountain? I say in a Todd Howard accent, you can climb it.
Liar.
A lot of times open world games kind of lie about that. There is obvious limits that you can't go through, and even games that don't lie about it, is there really that much there?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I was Colin, you took the words right out of my mouth. So I love Breath of the Wild because it's fun to do the like actual exploring mechanics. What I hate about Breath of the Wild is when you get there, 9 times out of 10, it's not something you care about. I'm gonna be honest.
What do you mean? You don't
Like-
care about random traveler number 5 who asked you to bring him 40 rock mushrooms in exchange
Yeah.
for 10 rupees?
Now, of course, with Breath of the Wild, to me, it's perfect in that it's just fun to climb stuff in that game, just a little management and stuff. But this game, it kind of takes the opposite approach. It doesn't care how you traverse the world per se. The traversing is pretty simple. You have a horse, you run fast, you go. About it. You can jump, like double jump with the horse, because like a lot of the mechanics that they give you for exploration just makes it easier to move places, and not necessarily because it's more fun to move, if that makes sense. Like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a game about the movement itself. Breath of the Wild is a game about the movement itself. This game doesn't care about the movement. It cares about what you do when you get there.
No hang glider or hookshot?
Nothing.
Cringe.
Nothing. And I think they have 100% more than Skyrim, more than Cyberpunk, more than any other open world game I've played in the world. It has nailed there's something here for your efforts. 8 times out of 10, every time I go somewhere, it is something that I think, oh, cool. I'm glad I went through the trouble to get this. I may not use it, but I think it's cool enough that I got it. And so because of that, I think this game brought me back to I don't know if any of you guys have played it, but Super Mario Galaxy, the first one, not the second one, the first one. This is not specific to that game for like general case. It's just for me when I was a kid playing the game. At that point, I had access to internet forums. And so half the time when I play the game, it's me exploring, try to figure out, hey, what's on like the other side of this like star that I haven't side quested into, like those stars that you can fill and do this small mini game and get a star out of. Lumas, they're not stars. Yeah, Lumas that you can like fill up to the brim with Luma tears or whatever. I forgot how the game works. Yeah, but like the alternate stars, half the time I discover them myself because I'm curious and I want to have the fun of discovering them. And half the times when I think, damn, I'm just kind of like, I don't really want to go through the whole exploration thing, I can go online, meet other people who've done it, follow a guide, and go through it. And I think to myself, damn, it's good that I didn't have to miss out on anything. I think exploration in this game takes me back to that more so than any other game. I've yet to feel this childish about like giddy about trying to find a new area, seeing a new area over there, like that small, like depressed like structure, and going to it and being like, I wonder what's on that side. And I wonder if it's something new that I'll never be able to experience again, you know? Stuff like that. But it never felt like, how do I put this? There are definitely moments in this game's exploration where you can't do it alone. You know? Like you have to go look up a guide. It is not cut and dry. You have to go find the right spot, and you have to like, it's some IGN wiki or something.
That invisible
Most
wall
people-
that you have to roll into like 50
Yeah.
times.
Now, most people, 100% fairly, would say that's a downside. You shouldn't have to go look at a guide online to figure out what you're supposed to do for some obscure quest line that turns into like a major ending quest line. You know what I mean? For me personally, that's a benefit. I loved that as a kid. I loved having some stuff that I can explore and see for myself, and some stuff that's so like out of the way that you can just go to a forum and they're like, hey, we get it. This game has a bunch of stuff. Here's something to help you out. And I'm like, yes, now I don't have to spend hours, but I also get this neat little community aspect of, yeah, there is this thing here. And we took the effort to finding it for you. That's personally me. I love that. I think this thing is the perfect blend of all of that, and I love the exploration more than anything else. I think traversal is minimal. I think it is just to get the job done. And I think FromSoft planned for that and did perfectly on that. Having those like little pillars of wind where you can jump up a mountain because it's just inconvenient to go around everything. Because they know that the whole point of exploration is convenience and not always just discovery. I think they did their job. They wanted to be go there, there's something there, and not go there because it's fun to move. And I respect them for it.
Those pillars of wind are really nice too, because a lot of open world games, especially recently, have taken the approach of like, oh, you see that mountain? You can go climb it. Yeah, but climbing is slow and boring.
Yeah. So I think FromSoft really understood, like, hey, we're not selling you the movement, we're selling you the location, you know? So they take the movement out of the equation as much as
FromSoft
possible.
said it is about the destination.
Yeah. So I think exploration, one of the top pillars, rightfully so. Oh shit, I haven't fought this guy? Hold on.
Boss time.
I think it's one of the rightful pillars of this game, and I'm very glad Miyazaki designed it the way it did. I think it fits perfectly with the narrative he was trying to make, and also the gameplay that I got to experience.
Killed his horse.
Oh, this is the first night cavalry you're supposed to fight. That's hilarious. I can just brute force through this. We should get into that to gameplay. Anyway, a bunch of stuff. Oh, cool.
See, even 110 hours in, he's still finding new things.
Anyway, but yeah. Any questions on exploration? Any opinions?
And for opinions, I'm in that other boat where I think it's kind of dumb that a lot of your game is hidden away behind stuff that I have to inquire about or be like super perceptive of in order to find. But like I think at this point FromSoft has kind of nailed that as their aesthetic
Niche?
niche. Yeah.
Like just their design, they know people are gonna find it.
So like I
Yeah.
feel like I can't really fault Elden Ring for that because I went into Elden Ring knowing that would be the case. I mean, in a more linear game like Sekiro, it's not as prevalent, but there's still a lot of stuff that you can find out of the way. When an open world game, yeah, you can bet your keister that there's gonna be a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think I fundamentally disagree that the destination is important. However, the journey should also be there. The movement should be fun. Like, I'd rather
Agree.
play a Dark Souls game where the sort of like the sort of path between areas is also part of the curated, like, you know, thing.
See what you're saying.
Instead of just having 100-hour open world map to get between these sort of like, you know, dungeon
Esque
deck-
like areas.
yeah,
Yeah.
like more typical to a Dark Souls game.
No, I see you. I definitely think I am of the minority opinion on this one.
I think in terms of exploration, Elden Ring does it very well. Like you said, 8 times out of 10, you go somewhere and there's something there that's more than just like, you know, a cheap item or something like that.
I don't know. I feel like so many things is just like, oh, there's like, yeah, there's usually a dungeon or something you can fight or something you can do, but there's like no guarantee that the thing you're doing gets you a reward you
And
give a shit
that-
about.
exactly.
Like, a wand, cool. That's
Well,
gonna
that's
be great for this.
that's the issue that I'm sure Samuel will get into with combat and difficulty. But Yeah, I mean that all comes down to what your gameplay mode is. So yeah, if you're a high strength or dex build and you get intelligence based weapon, yeah, that's not going to help you. But I think even just being able to have that weapon, if you do ever decide to respec, or like getting new Ashes of War or something like that, again, I think most other open world games do that more poorly than Elden Ring. It might not always be super worth it, but hey, if you go through one of those like mini dungeons, you know you're at least getting a good handful of runes and maybe, hopefully, a good item. But I totally see where you're coming from with not knowing if it's worthwhile ultimately.
Yeah, no, I definitely see it. I think Dark Souls as a series is interesting because they relatively have the same pillars, and so after 1, 2, and 3, like the fan base has kind of gotten used to them. Whereas Elden Ring, they decided to change their pillars up, and so they're subject to the same critiques as they were from the original Dark Souls 1. And that doesn't make the critiques wrong or anything. I think it's pretty interesting that like the way they do things will always seem to like half answer a question, if that makes sense. And it's up to the person to decide if that half answer is good or bad.
Right. I think I don't. Based on your response, I would assume you feel a similar way, Jeff. But I personally prefer FromSoft's previous works, like they're more linear styles of games. But
I've only played Sekiro to mostly completion. I played a little bit of Bloodborne.
Okay.
I think I do enjoy Sekiro more though. To be like to confirm, like yeah, we probably do agree.
Yeah, but I would still go out of my way to say like, yeah, Elden Ring is a really well-made open world game. I would never flake it for that just because it's not my preferred game style.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to us about crafting briefly.
Tell you what, I'm gonna to give this setting or give this topic justice. Because I can't read the stuff on my screen right now. I'm going to switch over to Elden Ring and show you the crafting menu that I've accumulated, which, by the way, isn't fucking complete by a long shot. Apparently, I'm missing like 7 pages, 7 like items to unlock more crafting ingredients. But I'm going to show you the current list I have. So here's the whole item list. This is by regular open world exploration standards. This is a huge list of items that you can craft, right? And it's still off by I'm pretty sure 7 pages at least, and there's more. It's insane. I think this is a niche mechanic. And here's why I will say it's niche and not useless. I think there are some absolutely incredible items you can craft. I didn't know this until halfway playing through the game. These crystal darts, if you throw them enough times at a statue enemy, they will turn against their own. Like it's mind control. Did you know that?
No, because the game wouldn't dare tell me that.
So the game tells you this in one of those like small secret pages that you can buy from merchants from some random merchant in Caelid. Like,
okay, cool.
I'm super like way more into that than like. I feel like there's like even more niche knowledge that's just straight up not told, even, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
at least there is a guy somewhere who gives that information.
I think because of the fact it is obtainable information provided you pay the guy, I think that makes it cool. It's in the realm of cool because it's my own decision to not buy it that changed how I played the game.
So you mean if I had these during like that mini boss fight against the 2 guard dogs?
Yeah, so exactly. So apparently the main mechanic way to do it, or I shouldn't say main, but one of the options to do it is throw enough darts that it turns against its other boss counterpart.
I'm so upset. That fight took me so long.
I was so pissed when I heard it, and I kind of laughed because I was like, had I just bought that thing from the dude, my entire experience would be different. And I think that's cool. I think I'm gonna put it on the side of cool because it was obtainable. That being said,
I do really like unique object interactions like that.
Yeah.
That being said,
that's in Caleb though.
That being said, that is one of the items that they project to you. They will offer that to you. There are more niche items that they don't tell you. For instance, the rainbow stones, right? If you talk to someone, they will explain that rainbow stones can be thrown to see if like there's
you can survive a drop.
If you can survive a drop, right? What they didn't tell you is that you can throw a stone as there's a unique mechanic with it and some other object that you can throw a stone, and I'm pretty sure this is a bug and not a mechanic. So you can throw a stone, throw another item against it, and it forces the item to not break. And if you fall there, I think this was really early on in the game, it won't count as like, it'll show as not death damage, right? Essentially, so you'll survive the fall. I think that item interaction was a glitch. I think it was removed. I can't confirm. But there are more niche stuff like that. Like for instance, these aromatics, right? Usually you see them used by the aromatic enemies. Mm-hmm. They are super effective against a specific enemy. Do you know how you're supposed to tell that they're super effective? In the lore, when the warring factions fought for the fracture of the Elden Ring, right? There was one army. There was the aromatics from I think it was from the capital city that they are there. Yeah, the capital city. Going against some of the Lunaria region stuff. Apparently, it was super effective. That's why they created the aromatics. You're supposed to know that from the lore, way from different like 7 different dialogues you're supposed to talk to. That's not good. That's annoying. That went past the realm of cool to just straight up annoying. I shouldn't have to figure that out from that much deduction. That's bullshit. Also, never had to use it because by the time you get to the capital city, Lunaria is fucking trivial. Like the enemies that they're super effective against, you don't need them. So what was the point? Why did you have to explain this to me?
Because technically you could have gone all that way to the capital city without going to the...
I don't know, man. Yeah, there's 6 items out of the, 100 something items I currently have that I actually consistently crafted. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I don't even know you could craft these. This is apparently like a thing later in the game that you can get. Didn't know. Had I known this, this would have been easy. The game would have been a lot easier if I could craft these. But I didn't know, so I moved along. I only used 6 items of the 100, and of the rest of them, they're pretty much useless. This crafting, I wouldn't say is a joke, it's just extremely, extremely niche. And the fact that they require you to not only find 17 different individual pages to unlock the crafting recipes, but also have the items in the overworld game to craft these, and remember and go through the crafting menu to craft them, is way too much for the benefit they provide. They are small boons at best. So crafting is...
I also feel like for a good segue into combat after our water break, I feel like during combat, you have very little reason to ever use these in a boss fight. Because there are
better
ways to kill a boss. Is a boss weak to fire? You have a fire spell. Why would you take like the wind up animation for a pot? That's gonna do
I will
a
admit-
third of the damage.
I will admit, I mentioned there is 3 things I use down in here. The greases, if you're doing like a greatsword build, which I did for a time, that wasn't already like a magic sword. They're wonderful for boss mechanics.
Blood grease, I think, outright doubles your
Yeah, it's
your bleed.
I think grease is the
It's-
only thing I use too.
yeah, the grease is wonderful. I think it's great. I love the mechanic that they added there.
But that's just like a continuation of other dark, like fire paper has always been really good in Dark Souls.
Yeah, like I think they went too far with this. I don't want to say I can feel it, but I can kind of see it that this was like they wanted to improve it, but this was a last ditch effort. This was an afterthought to them. They were just like, oh shit, we do have to improve this part. Let's just add more recipes. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's cool that they allow it. I think there is such a thing as option overload. If you throw too many things on a shelf as options, people will not look at them. It's just noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think I
that
ever.
covers-
I don't think I ever used that mechanic. Like
Yeah.
maybe once or twice, but
I did it to craft crossbow and like bow stuff.
Yeah.
Like the ammo.
Yeah,
from
those
the
ones. If you're
bones.
doing a bow build, if you're doing a bow
Yeah.
build, it helps a lot. That's about it.
It's like pretty nice, but even then, that's literally the first page of crafting.
yeah.
Mhm.
The other 16 does nothing for you.
It really doesn't. Did you know? Because they introduced this in the beginning of the
Did you
game,
know?
and I forgot until the end. And I think it's just me because I'm that dumb. But there's an item you can craft that heals your horse mid-battle without using your.
I
without
remember
your class.
learning at the very beginning of the game, immediately forgetting, and then seeing it in a YouTube video 4 months later.
Yeah, like I was just like, oh right, they had that. I feel like I survived just fine without it.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I beat Radahn without it. Like
Yeah,
I'm
fine.
set, I'm good.
I'm good.
We don't gotta do all that.
I can't wait for the combat section and your at the end
Oh,
of it
man.
asking for questions and opinions where I can talk about my Radahn story because I feel like it fits in very well.
So actually, I think I specifically had in my original review a specific section addressing how I felt reacting to your story. Anyway,
Water break.
water break time. Combat. I'm gonna start at the end because I want to say my hot take. Here's my hot take. It's not a hot take. The combat I think is perfect for me. I love it. Except for a few key aspects. But other than that, I think it is genuinely ideal for me. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. So, Dark Souls combat, like Hollow Knight, is based on timing. Precision in timing is what it's based on. Except, unlike in Hollow Knight, where it feels more, what's the right word? Crisp and rhythmic. In Dark Souls, it's more.
Reactionary.
Is that the word?
That from my perspective, I feel that way.
Patient. I think patient and reactionary are the 2 words I would describe for Dark Souls. Not Elden Ring specifically, but just the Dark Souls series in general. It is more patient and reactive. You more so enter this dance, like I think many people talk about it, but Dark Souls as a series, not Elden Ring, has a rhythm to it. The enemy gets a chance to do its attacks, and you rhythmically, or like you patiently dodge each of them, and as their tango ends, your part begins, and you do your few attacks against them, and then the cycle rinse and repeats itself. I think.
How you describe that?
Thank you. I try my best. But I think that lends itself to being very samey for a lot of bosses. Not in a way that I can explicitly point to, but it's an internal thing I feel when playing Dark Souls 3 or like Sekiro or something, there is an inherent rhythm to every boss that is rarely broken. In Sekiro, it's broken by like the guardian ape, right? And
In a
because
good
it
way.
breaks it
Broken in
in
a
a good way.
way.
It's an expectation subversion, and because of that, it's a frustration that you feel is okay for a one-time thing. And in fact, that makes the game more interesting because it like makes you second guess yourself.
It's also broken by the demon of hatred in a bad way.
And we're not talking about the demon hate. We're skipping that part. In any event, so that was the framework for combat from the company that made this game in their previous releases. I want to keep that same perspective going into my review of combat in this game. In this game, combat isn't a tango of two people. It's more so threading a needle through a haystack.
No.
Threading a needle
No,
through a
just-
moving haystack. Yes.
No. Just threading through a moving needle.
No. Threading a needle through a moving haystack.
You can put a needle through a haystack easily.
What is threading a needle through a haystack? Are you
I don't
implying
know.
that you're
Look,
threading a needle while you're in a haystack
I am-
and the haystack is moving?
I am being questioned about my analogy, and I
It's
don't
a
have a proper
metaphor.
answer. I don't have a proper answer, so I'm skimming over it.
Threading a needle through a red solo cup, like anything random.
Look, okay. It is.
It's like riding a bike as a fish.
Honestly,
There's-
I tried to find one that didn't make any sense. I was having a hard time. I don't know how Sam got here.
I'm trying to think. Colin, okay. Colin, have you seen Grimgar Fantasy of Ash?
yeah.
Okay. You know the critical hit mechanic that MC character gets?
Yes.
And he has to follow a very specific flow
Right.
that doesn't make sense to him until he lands the hit.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't know how to write a proper analogy for it. Cause like it's not pinpoint accuracy. It's not a tango anymore. It's more so you're a hacker trying to like break through a system and trying to find the one like path to get there.
I mean,
It- Just like see what I mean? Like I can't find a proper analogy.
It's
It
trying
feels
to
like-
it's trying to pass a camel through the eye of a needle.
a bit
yeah,
extreme. Okay, a bit extreme.
That's a Matthew 19:24 reference for all you Christians out there.
Okay.
It's like trying to pass a haystack through the eye of a needle.
Oh my god. All right. I get it. It was a bad. All right. Whatever.
Oh fuck.
Point
Now
is, it's very much you are exploiting a weakness when it presents itself and no longer a dance between two people. This game has a Herculean task of somehow keeping FromSoft's reputation of being a difficult game by skill requirement, while also introducing itself to new players, while also making sure that it remains balanced in an open world game where you can explore and find any item from the get-go, essentially. So it is fighting a war on multiple fronts when FromSoft as a game company is used to very linear game experiences where it's just tackling one challenge at a time. I think, in my opinion, that presents itself in the way it solves this problem. Enemies are really, really fucking reactive. Like, more so than any reasonable enemy would be in any other game. Like, it almost feels like they're, what's it called? Input peaking. There's a proper slang term.
I think they literally
in
are.
the-
I think that's
they are.
That's
So
in their
in
code.
the game, in their code, they actually are input peaking.
what's input peaking?
Yeah, this is not the correct term. I forgot the correct term. It's input something.
It's
but
just like
Input
They-
reading.
yeah.
the enemy AI, when it's written in the game, will actually wait for your command input on the frame that it inputs. So if you do like press the X button to attack while jumping, it'll read the first frame that input comes in and immediately counter it, right? And it's called reading because it waits for your command essentially to exploit it.
And so, to input my 2 cents here, which will inherently give away my opinion on this matter. Other Dark Souls games, it could often be, you're fighting a boss and the boss has like a 3-hit attack pattern. They're like boom, boom, boom. And then after those 3 hits, they take a pause, and once you've learned that pattern, once you've done the dance a little bit, then you can heal or attack in that time, whatever. Elden Ring bosses will have a 3-hit attack pattern, boom, boom, boom. And then you go to heal, and then they're like, hot psych, 4th hit out of nowhere.
Yeah. They will wait for specific inputs. Like, almost every boss in this game will have a reaction for you healing too early. Immediately. They will always have a reaction for you backing up and healing too early. It's clockwork. Like, it's kind of insane. And I think this is the part where my opinion diverges a bit, but it's not jumping ship. I think that part makes it really, really difficult for melee builds. And I think it lends itself more to having new players encouraging new players to summon like either another friend that you can do for bosses that you've always been able to, or a new mechanic in this game, summon an NPC helper, essentially.
Hey,
there are ghosts that you can summon.
Pull up your gameplay screen and show us your good old duplicate.
Do a column. I'm under the desk. So we're gonna make our way over there as I show the ghost mechanic, but essentially it's an NPC summon that you get for free in select areas. I think it's really great. Like, before we get into the actual benefits of balancing for that, or drawbacks of balancing for that, I will say it's really great FromSoft made it that it's only specific areas that you can summon. I think that was a really good move on their part. You should not be able to summon it every time. So the dragon that you're supposed to fight, I already killed, so this is kind of pointless. But let's say for the sake of argument, we're here. Let's summon the dude. So this is what it looks like. You summon the character. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
I bet. You summon the character. I have a very broken build of this person coming in to like do other stuff, and they'll essentially do the attacks for me, or they'll act as another player with a pretty solid AI to boot. No, let me pick up the item. Thank you. That was not needed at all. There we go. Yeah, so we're here. So you usually see that tombstone in boss fights or in areas in the overworld that have a really hard overworld enemy just there. I think it's pretty fair where they locate it. FromSoft, to give a better, a nice, as close analogy as they can to another game, Hollow Knight for bosses really lends itself well to the amount of bosses it presents to you.
We gotta find a different game.
I'm trying to work with games that, I don't know how many games Caroline has played, but I do know Hollow Knight's one of them.
Right. That's fair.
Like combat heavy games.
Yeah. So in Hollow Knight, they really do well to balance it for the specific amount of enemies that are in that boss fight, right? So
you're gonna die from poison, by the way.
It's fine. What am I gonna lose? Like 2,000 souls? So if you go to, let's say, the Mantis Lords, they will give you 2 or 3 because that's how they balanced it for that situation. If you go to Grey Prince Zote, it's just 1 Grey Prince Zote. It's hard, but it's not impossible based on the timings of that combat, right?
That makes sense.
Now, they balanced it against one player. If two people fought against Grey Prince Zote, and Grey Prince Zote has a form of like buffered stagger damage that it can do if you hit him enough times, it's not fair. It becomes very quickly a trivial fight, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm following.
And it's kind of hard to balance for that, because now you have the option. Okay, so here's the things we can do. We can increase his health whenever an extra summon or other player is brought in. This is what Elden Ring does by default, and this is what most Dark Souls games does by default, which is fair. It's like the least you can do to make it somewhat similar to fighting them by a single person. But after that, the only other thing you can do is completely changing up their attack mechanics based on multiplayer versus single. And that kind of breaks a foundational rule of Elden Ring, in that a boss should behave the same regardless of the situation, right? And that's a thing that Dark Souls tends to hold itself to. This creates a huge problem, because if you can summon someone and summon an NPC at the same time, so you can have up to 2 people summoned to help you at once, right? That makes the game very, very trivial for most bosses. Like really, really trivial. And so I don't want to go into this just yet, because difficulty is another section way down the line. But that gets into the question of, is the game really holding multiple difficulty levels or not? Yada, 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 whatever. But it affects how you combat in the game. Me personally, I had to make the personal decision of, I only want an NPC summon if it gets really, really hard and I designate it so. And I never summoned anyone from multiplayer. I don't use multiplayer. So because of that's my decision. The way Elden Ring decided to balance it out is that they gave each of these bosses so many reactionary moves, because they almost expect you to play 2 players. That's why they feel so fast, because they're supposed to react to 2 different player inputs, like you and the NPC you summon. Not that it's impossible to do by yourself, it's just that it requires so much precise timing on a constant basis. And even the parts where you're supposed to be quote unquote guaranteed a hit after a chain combo that the enemy finishes, you're not, because if it was the case, he could be exploited as a stagger by 2 people just hitting him at the same time constantly, right? And so it just kind of feels unfair at times. I think especially with my like 3 days, 4 day, 5, I don't even know how many days streaming of the Millennia fight, like people understood it subconsciously just looking at it. Like some of the stuff Millennia could do is just unfair. Like absolutely unfair. And the only reason why is because Millennia wasn't designed as a boss against one person. She was designed as a boss against 2 people. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so combat for melee gets very precise. I think it's enjoyable when I want it to be the hurdle I want to cross. For instance, Millennia. I think that's enjoyable. I think it becomes beyond the scope of frustrating into irritating when it's a hurdle I just want to pass to get to the next part of the story. A good example of this was Margit the Fell King. Not the first time you fight Margit, the second time. Huge spoilers if you don't play the game, but I feel like everyone here is okay with it. You fight Margit a second time if you haven't gotten to that part yet, and when you do, it gets annoying if you don't have a summon. Like really annoying. And it makes it more annoying because you can feel when you fight him, he's not supposed to be a big hurdle. He's not supposed to be this wall that you conquer and like cheer in victory over. He's just a wall to the next part of the story that's really important. And I don't care for what he has to be as a difficulty. I just want to go to the next part. So, melee tends to be, not always, but tends to be a more difficult path to traverse through in this game. Thankfully, Elden Ring, as it's designed, has multiple different options. You can do melee, you can do ranged attack with crossbows and bows, and you can do spells. And for the first time in like any Dark Souls game, I feel like Elden Ring has gotten the closest it's ever been to balancing for every single option. Every option has a broken meta. Every option has a normal build that you can do that will get you through most of the game. You want to dual wield great shields? You can do it. You can do it in this game, and you can actually get pretty decently far. It's not perfect. I think there are some bosses that are frankly near impossible to do with that build, but you can do it, and I think that's really cool. I think there is an option so long as you adjust the leveling for your character's like stats properly and choose the right equipment. There are some really cool builds that you have access to that wouldn't even be conceivable in Dark Souls 1 or in like any other game for the most part. Like Skyrim, I feel like does a much worse job at this in that everyone kind of plays the same thing when they redo like playthroughs.
Stealth archer.
Yeah, right? Like that's just what you do. Anyway, I think the combat in that, like in this perspective, is really great. I think they have done a great job at balancing options for there, but they can only do so well. And combat sometimes, to reference Colin's earlier question, does get inherently pigeonholed. There are some bosses that you can feel it. There is just a way to beat them, and that's the way you're supposed to do it. Does that mean you absolutely cannot do it another way? No, you could totally dual wield great shields and try your combat against Melania. You could do it. It's possible. I've seen it happen. You will suffer. You will suffer headache after headache. It is not fun. You lose fun. And so I want to say, in sort of like a contradictory statement, it is both the most diversified and well balanced and pigeonholed and unbalanced combat system I've ever played. You know? I have done significant sections of this playthrough with a katana and spells on my offhand. I think that was fun. I've done sections of this playthrough with one great shield and stats to boost my guard to the point where I just like shield slam people all day. That was fun. I've done pure like dragon spell builds where you just summon a dragon head. Like you turn your head into a dragon head and cast fire breathing spells. That was fun. But at no point in time did I feel like the build I had would carry me through the entire game, period. No questions asked. I always felt like at some point I have to switch to some build for this specific boss so I can get through this one boss, and then I can go back to being whatever I want for most of the rest of the bosses. And again, I think part of the reason why they give you so many respec items is that Elden Ring acknowledges that. They realize, hey, this is the best solution we can come up with for play your own way in a game that's meant to be kind of linear. So we understand, here's some items you can do to respec and try out new stuff. It's a sniper pointed at the wrong target. I don't know. I can't think of a better
metaphor.
Love
these analogies.
Dude, I'm drunk as shit. I'm taking another shot. But yeah, it's an answer to a question I didn't know I had, and I appreciate the answer, and I think FromSoft really curated something that can't be matched by many other people. But I also think it's a question that everyone having the answer to it now realize isn't the right question to ask. You know?
It feels like they were stuck between wanting to do a new sort of combat to accommodate this open world style and sticking to the Dark Souls formula. And they didn't really, in my opinion, I know this is your review, but in my opinion, I don't think they landed that fully, because, you know, you, like every other, except like Sekiro, like every other FromSoft game, you pick a class at the start of the game. That class does not matter. It does not matter what class you pick, because you can get as many levels to respec into whatever you want. To be fair, yeah, you could do that in other Dark Souls games, but there's a huge difference between being level 143 and respecing all those stats and level 50 at the end game and respecing those stats.
Yeah.
So like,
Cheers, bro. I'll drink to that.
yeah. So like, I feel like they didn't even need to have that class system. And then in regard to like spells and summons and such, I feel like because it's FromSoft, people were expecting a certain thing from FromSoft games. And this is arguably more on the fans and their expectations than it is on the game design itself, that people expected the game to play in a certain way. And when you have a not insignificant portion of the fan base say you shouldn't play with this mechanic that is built into the game because it makes it too easy and kind of like gatekeeping people who like play a certain way, I think that leads to a lot of issues and questions about like how effective your game design was. I think they had their fingers in too many pies, basically.
Yeah. So, okay, so you can make perfect and now whatever. Fuck you.
I mean, that's an old idiom, but
anyway. Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I think this still lends itself to me as a person perfectly, because I usually stick with one build and stay with it. And then at certain times, I want to try other things because I don't want to miss out on like, what's this like? But I usually go back to whatever I want. It just happens to fall to how I play perfectly. And I understand how I play perfectly is very minuscule in the grand scheme of things. And I think they definitely missed the mark in some cases that I don't think anyone can hit the mark on this one. It's just like, so one thing I want to call back to is when I first heard about you completing.
Hold on, I was just gonna say, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
So tell us about interviewer microphone moment. So tell us about your encounter with Scorched Radahn.
So this game has a character that, story-wise, later on, I really fall in love with. But his name is Scorched Radahn. He is the second, third, some mid-level, like mid-amount boss that you fight in the game, and he's supposed to be a very huge challenge. There's 2 points I want to get across with this this boss fight. One is with your aspect, Colin, and then another is another aspect. The first one is, when I went to Radahn, had a very, very difficult time. I don't know if most of you remember that stream. It wasn't like the Millennium. The one way before that, it was just a couple times where I fight this big guy in a desert, with a bunch of other people around me helping me out. But that boss gave me a hugely difficult time, and eventually, with all the help I got from all the summons that I got, I was able to get him. I thought that was a very cool fight because of the difficulty presented, because of the story it wanted to tell. That fight is a festival. It's a festival of warriors to try and end his life. I'll go into the story of that more later, but that's the way it presents itself. It's supposed to be a Herculean task, befit of a warrior. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember watching Samuel play that, and it was hype watching it because I hadn't played as much Elden Ring as him at that point, and he overcame that challenge, and I'm like, bet that's hype. Because the thing I enjoy about FromSoft games is that feeling of satisfaction. Again, going back to Hollow Knight, beating the Mantis Lords, eventually way down the line beating radiance and beating the Sisters of Battle, like that euphoria you get of like, damn, I overcame like a really impressive challenge just now. That's awesome. And Elden Ring wasn't really making me feel like that. There were a couple instances with like Margit at first, because I think a lot of people will feel that way about Margit since he's the first huge hurdle. And then there were a couple others. Eventually, I got to the point of fighting Radahn, and I was excited for that. I was like, damn, I saw Samuel take on this really challenging fight, and I'm ready for it to be something I have to like work to overcome. Samuel, can you show what this spell does real quick?
Here we go. That spell.
Okay, so that's
it just
what you
throws
do.
A bunch of rocks.
Yeah, you summon 3 rocks, and if you're locked onto an enemy, those rocks will home in on that enemy. I get to the fight of Star Scourge Radahn, and like Samuel said, it's a festival. You can summon like 5 NPCs at once or something like that to help you fight with it because it is such a big climactic battle.
More than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the same 5 NPCs like on rotation as they die. But
Yeah, I didn't know they could come back.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I get there and I start, I know how this fight works. I saw Samuel do it. So I start summoning NPCs and I start hitting Radahn with this rock sling magic spell because it's like one of the best spells I have at this point. And I think you get it fairly early on in the game overall. That spell ended up being the only thing I hit Radahn with on that only attempt that I had to fight him because it killed him with pretty much minimal struggle. I think I went up and hit him with my sword for like the last 2 hits. The amount of underwhelming disappointment I felt at that moment really solidified the issue that I think a lot of people have with this game in how these different playstyles, yeah, you can try all these different things and they can lead to really cool different outcomes. And you can absolutely have fun with it. I'm not saying that the fight wasn't fun, just that it didn't give me that euphoria of victory that I was looking for. It's scaled poorly, I think. Overall, I think the game is scaled very poorly for how you go about using these different strategies. Because, I mean, you didn't see it against the boss earlier, but Samuel's mimic tier there is basically his character right now multiplied in strength by 2 and takes like half as much damage. And just having that to fight against other bosses, I saw that and was like, I don't want to use that. It's something built into the game and I don't want to use it because it feels like cheating almost. Like it feels unfair to these AI bosses I am fighting. And I think just a lot of people, myself included, hated that aspect, or not even hated, just didn't really vibe with that aspect of Elden Ring. That there is such variation between the ways you play, and there's almost clearly a quote-unquote right way to play. I think is the issue for a lot of people. You get the spells, you get like that big moon laser thing that kills the hardest bosses in 2 seconds, and
Provided they don't move.
But the fact that even that's just in the game, I think for a lot of people is like, man, that takes away a lot of the appeal that these FromSoft games have of overcoming those hurdles.
I think a lot of people would agree it's a result of FromSoft trying to spread itself a bit too thin with covering as much of a playstyle base as it can. Now, I will say, as a concession, or not a concession, but like more so a perspective change, when I first heard Colin do it, one shot, I was, honestly, I was a bit angry, a little bit sad, because I was like, damn, this motherfucker really did it in 1 attempt. Okay, buddy. But to me, like thinking about it, I was like, damn, that's really cool. Because later on, Colin had trouble with another boss that I ended up beating first try. I didn't even register it as a boss fight.
I remember telling you, like, damn, I finally got that rush of euphoria for defeating Elamir of the Briar. And you're like,
Yeah.
who? Who?
I literally didn't even register that they were. I was literally wearing their armor because it was such a boon as an armor. Didn't even register who they were. I didn't even know they were like a major boss. Because I beat it first try.
I felt the exact same way. I was like angry. Like I was upset. You were like, damn, I did this hard challenge and you don't even know who I'm talking about.
So to me, like, I guess when I got like after like thinking about both of them, I was like, damn, it's kind of really cool that this really is my own story when I play this game. And I think that's like, to me, that was enough to come to acceptance to it, and that like, hey, how I play this game dictates what story this game tells me based on which boss I fight. I think only that specific aspect of it is really, really cool.
Mhm.
But that doesn't diminish or remove the fact that the broken quote unquote ness of combat for certain bosses based on certain playstyles is still there. Like,
I think if you come out and release this game with press coverage saying like we're going with a different style here, like don't go in, and again, this isn't really on the developers to do, but you know, say that like this is going to be a different gameplay style. Like, don't go into this expecting what we've done up till now, because everything they've done up to now, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, even Sekiro, to a lesser degree, but still played very similarly. Like, you might have had a bigger focus on parrying like in Sekiro, or damage output versus defense for Bloodborne and Dark Souls, but you're still doing like the same sort of thing over and over in all of these games. Elden Ring is not the same. It's very similar. It follows a lot of the similar structure. It's going into Elden Ring expecting Dark Souls 4, I think, is what led me to not appreciating this game as much for how good of a game it is.
yeah, I think it has to do with the fact that a lot of Dark Souls games, the most specific examples of this I can give are Bloodborne and Sekiro. In those games, there is one way to play the game. The game punishes you for trying to play it in a style that isn't what it intends. There is only one way to fight in that game. In Sekiro, you have to learn to parry. That's it. There is no other way around it. You have to learn how to parry enemy attacks and then counter it with your own sword attack.
You get
don't
really
get to choose
good at
bow.
throwing shuriken, but it's
Yeah. Like, there are small items here or there, but you just gotta learn how to use a sword and parry perfectly. Whereas they've learned how to do parries in Sekiro, they've learned how to do like counters and health management in Bloodborne, and they've learned how to do rolling in Dark Souls. But in each of those games, that's the only mechanic, and they can hone in on how to perfectly adjust difficulty based on it to make it a challenge that you overcome for every boss. Whereas in this game, they were like, hey, we've perfectly honed all these mechanics. Let's introduce all of them together in this open world area where people can find whatever mechanic they want and let the player decide how they want to play.
Mhm.
It sounds good in theory until you play the game and realize that just means you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make
I
it good.
wholly agree with your sentiment that it's really cool that those options are there. Like, if you want to have Dragon Head, you can do Dragon Head. If you want to be big, bulky, giant sword man, you can do that. And it's going to be easier or harder, but it is really cool that you have those options. My issues arise where it almost seems like the game invalidates other options based on what else you could be doing. Like when the AI is like reading you so well, like they predict when you're doing attacks or their patterns are not actually patterns and hard to predict. In what other Souls games have I played? Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. I got really used to parrying, because parrying is really useful in those games. How many times do you parry in Elden Ring? Like, you can, but it's really hard, especially against bosses. because they're just unpredictable sometimes, and that kind of makes that style of like waiting for that opening or creating your own opening much harder to utilize.
I think that notion is definitely even more prevalent when you see professionals, quote unquote professionals, like speedrunners or people who are really good at the game, play the game, and you notice even they don't parry often, which is rare for a Dark Souls game. Like speedrunners always parry. But in this game, it's so unpredictable that they just don't. Yeah. Anyway. I'm not going to go through a gameplay section and not talk about Millennia. Can I just say, hey, shout out to you guys. For those of you who watched me stream, which I think all 3 of you were there, during like my 4-day journey. That was really fun. That was a very big highlight of this game for me, in both frustration and euphoria. I really loved the boss Millennia. Her character design is wonderful. When you get into the lore of who she is and why she existed and why she fought you in the state she did, she becomes even more of a pinnacle boss structure. Like, everything about her just screams such great character design. But the boss itself, because it holds itself to that character design and tries to be a challenge at the end game, when everything goes to haywire and they throw everything in the kitchen sink to try and stop you, it's an unfair fight that requires the highest of perfection for you to complete without help, and I got through that hurdle as a self-imposed challenge. And I think that made the game more enjoyable for me, and that makes the game all the more unenjoyable for anyone who wants to play it as a reasonable experience. And I think both perspectives are perfectly fair. In fact, I'd argue that the general perspective is even more correct in that a boss should never require pure perfection to beat, ever. To beat quickly is one thing. That's different. That's not the same. To beat at all should not be a pure perfection requirement.
The fact that there are people, certainly, that have been playing Elden Ring pretty much since launch and have still not beaten that boss.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Anyway, my 2 cents on that. There's a bunch more gameplay stuff I want to go over. It's 1. I'm pretty sure everyone here is sleepy. Let's try and move things along. Difficulty. An extension of the combat mechanic. I'll try to speed this part along, even though I feel it's a very important part. I think the difficulty curve in this game isn't a smooth curve, like with most FromSoft games and most well-designed combat games in general. I think this one is a step ladder. It is a step function. It just, like, you have a continuous, like, slow but consistent difficulty for one section, then all of a sudden you get really, really good at it because you found an item or understood a mechanic much better, and all of a sudden the section becomes a lot easier, to the point where it's not trivial per se, but it's perfectly manageable. You are not exerting too much effort to beat the bosses here or the enemies here. And then you beat that section, like the beginning area, and they introduce you to, not Liurnia, but like Caelid. And Caelid is just a huge spike. You are not supposed to go there. They tell you, yeah, you can go there, and you can go in and quickly, like, avoid all the enemies in the overworld and try to farm the decent items by just running, grabbing them, and leaving before you get killed. But you feel it is 100% a place you're not supposed to go to just yet. Of course, people who are really good at the game can go there, fight the enemies, and eventually win. But because enemy leveling is scaled to whatever that area is, the health pool is really, really big if you don't have an upgraded weapon. And that just makes every enemy a sponge, which isn't fun. You shouldn't have to do a perfect parry or like a counter attack or a double jump attack 15 times to get rid of an overworld enemy. That's ridiculous. No one should do that. And so you feel that it's like specific spikes, right? There's the beginning game. You eventually get used to it. The first 2 areas that you find, the open area and then the area, you beat those, and the game spikes a bit to get to Kaled. You're like, all right, fine, whatever. Eventually, you beat Kaled. Good. The leveling is or the difficulty is leveled out. It's much more manageable. Then you get to what I call proper mid game. There's a small spike there, and it's mostly a grind. You just have to level because you don't have enough XP. Your armor and weapons aren't upgraded, and your stats aren't upgraded. It's not that you don't understand the mechanics. It's just now you have to explore for a bit. I love the exploration, so I don't mind the grind. I'm perfectly happy. It just means that for a lot of times when you go to those new areas, you find yourself constantly being killed, and that's not great. But that's manageable compared to the end game. End game is stupid. It's not.
Overworld enemies kill you in 2 to 3 hits.
Like it's ridiculous. Like it's so dumb how they had to scale endgame. I get why they had to do it, because by endgame you have access to all the major mechanics and you've upgraded all major items. Everything. It is at its max. So rightfully they're like, hey, you can summon an NPC that's maxed out, that's really broken, and you can also summon another player. And you also have maxed out armors and stats. So you really do a shit ton of damage by this point, which is true. You're capable of doing it. Doesn't mean you always do it, but you're capable of it. And they're like, we have to adjust every enemy to make sure they are still reasonable for you at that max level damage output. Which isn't fucking fair. Because you are rarely at that damage output. It's not fun. It's not a good scaling.
Also, not to mention, they forced you to have to do all of that to even get to the end game.
Yeah, it's... I get what they had in their mind when they were going for it. I'm not saying that I'm a better game designer than them. I haven't done game design. I don't know how to do it right, but I feel like even a toddler can look at this and tell it's wrong. It's not right. Something was missing here. There's a jump with 0 explanation that doesn't get answered after you've jumped the hurdle. The only redeeming factor of it was the Millennium fight, and that was because I made it a personal goal. That wasn't the goal of the game. That was my own. The end boss was a huge difficulty spike. The last boss, the final boss, not the first phase of the final boss, the second phase, final boss, literally is perfectly designed for you to have the horse that you traverse with, that you grow to love this entire game and use the mechanics of combat for. The one where they introduce horse combat for the game. Perfectly placed for the horse to join you to like really prove what Elden Ring has as a new thing to package everything up in the final boss. You are not allowed to summon the horse. It's stupid. It's dumb. Everything about that boss is designed for the horse and all the other like tropes that the game leads you to believe, because the boss is dragon-like. And with dragon bosses in this game, almost all of them are designed for you to ride on a horse and fight, because that's dope. That's cool. And that makes sense for the scale of the dragons. In the final boss, who's scaled much bigger than a dragon, so very lends himself to a horse fight, they don't let you do it because fuck you. There's stuff like that in the end game that you can tell was designed for something, and last minute they just change it entirely for something else. And it doesn't make sense at all. I don't know. It's dumb, but it was there. It's fine. Difficulty gets like a 6 out of 10 for me. It was good in early game. It was okay in middle game. I kind of loved the middle game part the most for me, personally, because it meant more exploration to get more good. The end game's stupid. It's not fun.
I think the final nail in the coffin that drove me away from sitting down and finishing Elden Ring is getting to that town in endgame with the invisible assassins that just snuck up on me and killed me in one hit.
Yeah, those ones. Oh my god. You know the best part about that is there's an item that makes them visible. That's told in the beginning game by another merchant. When I learned about listen to me. When I learned about that, it wasn't cool. It wasn't fun. I got pissed. I literally stayed behind, beat that section without the item, went back, bought the item, and did the sectioning because I hated it. It was so dumb.
On one hand, I'm like, hey, that's cool that they have like that diegetic like explanation built into the world. On the other hand, fuck you.
That is so much
explanation built into the world from a guy who should not even be in the same continent as the enemies in question.
Yeah.
Oh, he just knows perfectly how to counter them, and he has the item.
It should be like, it should be guaranteed. It should be something you just see. Like, they should introduce it in a text box at the very minimum and say, hey, this item would help, look at them. And then the question isn't, hey, is there an item that exists in this world that can help? It's, I do know the item, where is it? You know?
Or something that they could do, and again, this is a little more out of the way, but again, a little more obvious. That enemy is a boss that you fight in one of the mini dungeons at some point. So put that NPC in that mini dungeon.
Right? Like, that's so... on so many levels, the end game feels so... It's rushed. I don't know how to explain this any further. It's rushed. It's so rushed. Anyway. There's difficulty. In 10 minutes or less. I don't know how many minutes it was, but there's difficulty. Alright, no major questions. I'm moving on to accessibility. This game is inaccessible. Period. If you go to the settings for accessibility options, there is no accessibility for people of visual impairment. There is very, very, very little settings for people with audio impairment. And there's very little settings for people with muscle impairment. So anyone with like slow reaction times, or anyone with like who finds it very hard to hold a button at full strength. There are some people who just muscle-wise don't have that. The game does support Xbox's adaptive controller, which is a very huge thing in the accessibility community for people who have physical impairments or mental impairments. I think it's great that they support that. I think that's the absolute bare fucking minimum, because the Xbox adaptive controllers can morph into, like, can be read as just a normal controller. It doesn't take much to support it. I think Elden Ring is the type of game that doesn't design itself to be accessible. I think Miyazaki knew that. There is no ambiguity there, and it's not his fault. I think it's perfectly fine that he says that, or that he chose that. It just means that this wonderful story that I personally really love can't be experienced in the same challenge and euphoria cycle as someone who's differently impaired than me. And I really think that sucks. Although that's nothing new in the game community, it's something I still have to acknowledge, you know? So, yeah, accessibility gets an F. A fucking F. An absolute F, bro. Anyway, sorry, that was my rant. FromSoft games have never been accessible. I think it's fine. I don't know the right answer. I think it makes me more mad that I don't know a right answer to this question. And I feel like it's something that if we had so much time with game design, we should have figured out, and we haven't. It sucks. Story. All right, so we're here. There were 2 more videos released by VatiVidya about recently, like literally within the past 2 days, about Elden Ring, right? Now, of course, he goes through this with every Dark Souls game, but something I genuinely appreciated about Elden Ring is that while it still holds true to the Dark Souls philosophy of storytelling, where it's very extremely well-defined world building and then implied story through items and like the brief character interactions you have with a few people, and the small amount of exposition that you get from like the intro cutscene or like some main cutscenes in the game. And they leave it up to you to figure out how much of the story you want, and it leads to this like kind of digging through the fossils and trying to uncover what the story truly was. And there's some and like there's a whole community built around it. And as with Hollow Knight, it's a very similar structure, except a bit more, like much more extreme. Of that, like a lot of the like story is you either go watch Mossbag's videos on like all the research that's been done to figure out what's actually happened, what's facts, and what we imply. I think personally, when I originally played Dark Souls 1, I didn't get it. It was just annoying to me. Like, I didn't understand why I was doing anything, and it didn't make sense. Dark Souls 3 was similar, but I understood what the game was trying to say, right? Like I didn't need to know the exact details of what the world I was living in. All I needed to know was, hey, this world is sick. It's dying. It's not good. And you're tasked with forcing to continue it. Doesn't that seem off? Isn't there something wrong about this? And that's what urges you to try other endings, right? I don't know the details of it. All I know is that, like, look at the world. Nothing's right about this. In Sekiro, their like spin-off game, they were very direct with the story. It's the one game where they're like, this is the story. This is what happens, and this is what you as a person are doing. They still have the other elements of like trying to find other people's backstory is still hidden, and you have to uncover through items and stuff. Exactly like story out of FromSoft's games. Going into Elden Ring, it appears that they've tried to keep their lesson from Sekiro. They lean a bit more into telling you more so the main like hows, what's, and whys. But for anything like beyond just the simple original objective, you have to discover for yourself. I think this leads to some really, really amazing moments of uncovering your own stories and interpreting your own events. A key example of interpreting your own events, I originally thought and this is okay. I should warn now. This is extreme spoiler territory from here on out. Like, if you want to keep any semblance of surprise or like discovery, now's your time to like mute yourself or something. Like this is the last thing I'm given. Okay, now that it's announced, there are a bunch of main endings you can get to the game. I think in total, including like small sub endings, there are 6 or 7 possible endings, right? And there's 3 main branches of endings. One is you go through, I guess, to say the story, you are a character that was brought back to this land because the order, or like essentially the religion, the foundation principles of how life thrives in the kingdom, and literally I mean like how life lives and dies and recycles. The order of the Erd Tree is fractured, and you need to piece it back together to make the full, I guess, Elden ring, right? It's a ring that was fractured. And then you become the new Elden Lord, right? To bring about an age of whatever. So there are options. You're supposed to beat the main bosses that like have all the fractured items and then get the ring. One of the main endings, this is the one that has 4 different subcategories, is you just rebuild the ring and become the new Elden Lord. That's plain and simple. The sub endings to it is like there's the original one where you just don't do anything else in the entire world but just beat the bosses, make the new Elden Lord. Pretty straightforward. Not really solving anything, you're just kind of continuing the problem. Not necessarily bad either, you're not worsening anything in the world. And there's a couple others where it's like, hey, you're addressing these critical flaws in the original order that happened because of whomever made it thought their ideals were. You had to fix it and rebuild the ring differently, right? So like there's Order of Destined Death or like other stuff. I forgot the actual official names, but it's just a bunch of different ones that's just you rebuilding the ring in the way you see fit and continuing on with a new age. Another one is, and this is the maiden ending, where you literally get a maiden and she's like, I will rebuild the Elden Ring, and I will do it, or sorry, I'll let the Elden Ring die and bring about a new age based on a new god that isn't like the Golden Order. And the way this god works is like reframing how we think of interactions between gods, demigods, and regular mortals in the world. In which case, the gods and demigods remove themselves into a distant land and give humanity, while this unsurety of death and recycle, right? The original like gods would recycle lives into new lives. While they're unsure about that, they also have complete freedom. They have the opportunity to make and think for themselves. And a bunch of other stuff that goes with it. I'm gonna get back to this storyline later because I think while it is great and it is the ending I chose and I think it's correct, the game, just by how it was developed, had a critical flaw that I do want to get to.
Quick question.
Yeah, what's up?
And the ending you chose was the maiden ending?
Yeah, so that's the maiden ending.
Is it because it's the only way you could get a maiden?
Yes and no. So
right.
I'll get back to that choice. I will admit, the fact that I could get a maiden was kind of enticing. I'm not gonna lie.
Hell yeah, brother.
But yeah, it does involve you marry a demigod essentially. Just thinking about that now is pretty funny. There's a chart somewhere online as a meme of like which endings to do in what order based on like general popularity, and like it does it as like a choice chart, right? Or like a question chart, and they're like, all right, you just beat the game. Have you what's it? Are you maidenless offline? And it's like yes, and the first time ending immediately points you to that one, and it's very funny. Never mind. Continuing on. The other option is they call it in the game like the Order of Chaos, essentially, and this is kind of the I don't want to call it the bad ending, and I'll explain why, but it is generally, if you go through the game, it kind of like considers it the quote-unquote bad ending. You meet with a blasphemous, like there are representatives of the Golden Order, like these, they call them fingers. There's 2 fingers, and it's literally just a hand with 2 fingers instead of 5. And they're supposed to impart the god's wisdom on you, or the god's like instructions on you, like commands or orders or whatever. They're the representative of the god, and they tell you what to do. You can choose to follow it or not, up to them, or up to you. What's considered blasphemy is the like 3 fingers, and you find it, and the way they tell this story, or like they showcase the story through the world, is really enticing. You have to go to the capital city, below the capital city, into the like area of the, basically, if it was India, the caste of the Untouchables, right? Like, and then you go below the Untouchables to like the Forsaken, or essentially like considered like below trash, like ones that are literally condemned to rot. And you go through that subterranean like refuse, just sewage, that these people are living in, that were shunned. And I'll get into more why those people, like that makes for such a compelling story. You go through below all of that to the deepest corners of like this world, and then you find this room of nothing but ash on the ground and a door, and you open it, and there's the 3 fingers. They burn their mark, like the hand is literally on, like essentially burns, and it burns its mark onto you. And the Order of Chaos is this principle that nothing is redeemable about this world. It's better to return it all to the origin of everything and burn it to ash. Just turn the, like level the whole world. Let it all drift away. Essentially the fuck you, burn everything down. And you can do it. That's an ending. It's generally considered like the ending that creates the most enemies. The maiden, or the person that plays as like quote unquote that acts as your like pretend maiden the entire game, actually, and again continuing spoilers, turns against you if you choose this option, because of like her viewpoints, not just like her instructions. She's instructed by the Golden Order, but also how she views the world. Like she tells you in a dialogue option, like there's still beauty in this world, is there not? Even amongst all this refuge and everything. It'd be insane to throw it away.
So it's like in real life if your girlfriend broke up with you because you started listening to Andrew Tate.
I guess I'm still a bit wrong. Like, I don't get this whole Andrew Tate thing. I'm gonna be honest.
He's a
It was mostly a
misogynist.
joke, but no one laughed, so forget it.
I laughed.
I liked it. I'm multitasking, but I enjoyed it.
I'm sorry.
That's why Mackie broke up. No, I'm kidding. Imagine. I was on the Andrew Tate train years ago.
Just been a secret misogynist.
Back
this
when it
entire
was
time.
just rape allegations.
Yeah, so like she goes against you because like to her there's a fundamental principle about like, no matter how bad it is, there is something redeemable and we can start from scratch and find a solution. Whereas you doing this option is no, there really is, it is irredeemable what's happened. Just burn it all. So I originally thought when I played through the game and discovered like the little tidbits or like stories of everything and like trying to piece together what I saw from the world around me, I was like, yeah, that seems extreme. There is a solution to everything. And I chose the Ronnie ending because it felt to me the source of all like suffering, or the source of like all the major suffering of all of the mortals and different creatures of the realm is due like morally gray goals of the gods and demigods. And I thought just separating those away, letting the people, while unguided and like unsure, still have their own freedoms is better than trying to rebuild it in some form of god. And that was my personal decision, and I really loved it. I loved that ending, and I think it was cool that I found a way to justify that ending. But I think what makes Elden Ring's story great is, depending on how you see it, it really justifies certain endings. And it's gray enough for me that I realize that like it's just the ideas or concepts of solving a problem of continued conflict, right? So Vati Vidya, basically, Dark Souls' Mossbag, released a video about the story of the Order of Chaos and the likely like original full story it's trying to tell you to get to that ending. And you discover like not only why there are merchants throughout the game that you can talk to that are just there to like sell you stuff, but they also have their own backstory. And the backstory goes pretty deep, and it goes into how like this city of like fortune basically forsaked all the merchants like race and faction for no reason other than they weren't blessed by the Golden Order, like literally blessed as they were born. And they send them below the Forsaken like level into rot, right? And not only that, but as you go down and you look into the like where they were left, you see that it's a bunch of bodies, and you're wondering, oh, okay, they rot and died here. That's really tragic. No, apparently the Golden Order knights and demigods and other purposely went down there, and instead of just killing them, drove them mad, like purposely through curses and spells and everything, drove them insane for nothing other than their own like beliefs. It's huge. I am begging anyone who plays Elden Ring and wants to learn more about the story, please watch their video on it, because apparently at that point, like where I like stood there, and this is my one gripe with that storyline, the moment you stand there, everything on is cut content, right? Like any more like dialogue that one of the merchants is supposed to give you, and it's a whole speech, and it's the most emotionally like powerful performance I've ever heard in any FromSoft game ever. Like the voice actor who did it was so amazing. It's insane. But Vati Vidya, like they found it and they reintroduced it into the story, and it's really great. So that was my main gripe with that story, but it justifies, like it really does justify when you see it. Like how could you not burn it all to the ground after you've seen like what this world has done to anything that wasn't for like blessed by it? And so, like, I thought it was really cool that even for like the mini sub endings for like the main one, going to Fia, the person that gives you a hug every time, and me just being like, I just needed someone to hug in this game, she has her own story about being a faction that's forsaken from the Golden Order, and not just the Golden Order, but the religious zealots of the Golden Order, because her like portion of this golden religion, like the part of it's called destined death that she like believes in, and that's her role in it. It was removed from the Golden Order both physically by like a demigod that stole it from the actual like Elden Ring, and also like thematically from the religious zealots. They removed its writings and scriptures, everything. They denied them their involvement in the entire religion and beliefs. Essentially, I'm trying best way to describe it as short as I can. Like she goes through there's a whole story with her of like trying to hide and remain alive from this, and a friend that you actually had in the start of the game actually is trying to kill her, and you have to like decide who to believe and everything, and it's a whole mixed gray area. But she has her own ending of like including her and trying not to let the Forsaken or like those who have been denied death, try not to let them rot or go mad. And there's a bunch of other endings. Every ending has its own justifications, and none of them are inherently bad. What I hate is that some of them, it feels like just at the end, like the most important parts weren't done right. So like in the Order of Chaos ending, I told you how like the last speech, the greatest one of all of them, was completely cut. It was cut content. That was still available in game files. So that was insane. The one with Ronnie, while philosophically I agree with, due to there's a translation error in most of her later speeches trying to explain why she's doing what she's doing. So essentially, like a lot of fans would actually like play the game in Japanese and correctly translate the like true interpretation into English, but for some reason like FromSoft's like localization team just kind of rushed on that one, and it actually makes it wrong. Like if you read it and try to logically understand what she's saying from those original like voice lines, it doesn't make sense. It seems like she's going backwards with her decision, or like going backwards with her justification as to why she's doing it. But yeah, that was a bit frustrating, and I had to like figure out from just other people what she truly meant at certain points. I'm taking another shot pretty soon. Not now, just soon. But all in all, I think the story is told at a pace I liked, but it's certainly end game heavy. Just the general main story. Now, to go on, what also makes FromSoft games great is the side characters that you meet and their short stories. And I think Elden Ring took it up to like 11, because it's the same level of side stories. There's just more of them, right? That's available throughout the world because it's a bigger world. Everything from like fighting Melania and discovering like her true reasoning of why she's fighting and why she refuses to let you in that room. Because of her love for her brother. She's the only demigod that doesn't believe that she's fit to be the next Elden Lord. So every other demigod, the reason why they shattered the ring is because they want to be the next Elden Lord. She shattered her own peace, not because she believed it, but because she believes her brother is truly the next one to be Elden Lord, and for good reason. It's a whole other story. But her love for her brother is known throughout like all the land, and it's very well told. It's very, very it's a true sibling love. And the reason why she has like scarlet rot, right, is because she wasn't blessed by the Golden Order. She was actually cursed, essentially. Like I'm simplifying a whole ton of this, but she was cursed by the Golden Order, and she went to find a cure, like for it, but she didn't care about the cure herself. It was actually her brother that was like, no, I want to build a world that's perfect for anyone, those who are cursed or those who are blessed. No one should have to go through anything. And so he encouraged her to go for a cure, find it herself, yada yada yada. And then this led to her leaving, and then the brother, who's this is kind of weird to explain, he's in a cocoon. He's in a cocoon building a new tree that's not the Golden Order tree. Whole other weird shit. But the cocoon was stolen by another dude who is a demigod who is obsessed with the brother in like an unhealthy, like creep X kind of way. Like it's bad, right? So Melania literally goes to an entire region to find the person responsible, and meets up with the big dude Radahn, and they have a fight, and the fight is a whole ass battle. It's a legendary battle, and there's no winner because they're so goddamn bad. Both of them are so badass. But to end the fight in a draw, she like spreads out Scarlet Rot in a huge attack, and it sends the whole Caelid to a wasteland, and that's why Caelid looks so red and cursed. It's really cool. Anyway, the community goes ballistic over like all the different like sub stories and what it means for each character, and like going into thought-provoking what ifs, like who truly is stronger, Melania or Radahn, or like stuff like that. And it's really cool. I think every character gets a chance to be in the spotlight, even for a brief moment, and not a single interaction feels wasted if you truly want to talk to them. If I can fall in love, well, not in love, but like truly like form a camaraderie with a warrior pot, just a pot, a fucking clay pot that's sentient, I feel like the game has done its job with side characters. So story is great, side character killer. I think the game nails this part exactly as I felt it would, and I think that's all I asked for it. Let's drink. Cheers.
Yo, cheers.
Oh,
That one was
Fuck.
bad.
Fuck.
That was bad. Don't drink the Old Smoky mango habanero whiskey. It's very spicy. I
You should
forgot
get-
what habanero was. Fuck. I'm not built for this. Oh my god. The spices I eat are garlic and oregano.
That's
So, how do you feel about this plot line of you have option A, red pill, blue pill, red pill, world goes back to exactly how it's been. You just continue the cycle. Other pill, you don't do that.
So, I'm a big Colin, I'm dumb as shit. I'm drunk. Can you?
So basically, what I'm getting at is
We're
that,
talking about the Matrix, obviously.
what I'm getting at is that Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, by extension, because they're continuations of the similar story, and then now Elden Ring, all have like the same idea behind like the main crux of their story. Like, do you continue this thing that's happening, or do you kind of go against the grain and do a different thing?
So like that aspect of their main story.
Yeah, like
being repeated.
do you feel, because I know
Yeah.
you've played a handful of them at this point, like do you
Yeah.
feel
So
like it's
I will
over-
admit, I think it's part of their like signature, essentially, like FromSoft.
Mhm.
I definitely think there is. If you played Dark Souls 1, 3, and like Sekiro, like you start to feel the beats of, oh, okay, we're here.
I am
Do you
playing
continue
Soul
this?
Shame.
Yeah. Like the area is gray and dim. Do you let it stay gray and dim, or do you change something, and does that change really matter? Like every game that they have that kind of beat to them.
Because why wouldn't they?
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you
personally don't mind it.
I guess you
Like-
really don't play these games, like maybe Sekiro, but you don't really play the games for the story. Like, they keep it up, it's a nice quality of story, but it's not like that's why you're playing a Dark Souls game.
I think you're not playing it for any surprises. I think I will admit I played for the story. I think I don't expect a new story beat, if that makes sense.
I feel like if they do it in fucking Dark Souls 4, Elden Ring 2, whatever the next thing is, I feel like
Yeah.
at that point I'm just like, okay, I get this is like your shtick, but
No,
there
I
are
definitely feel it. I feel
other
like
ways to do it.
I think that it's definitely worn its
Or now it's welcome.
stay, or it's overstayed its welcome. I don't know. It's a bit worn out, but I think because of the way they've been able to tell the story, just structured differently on different situations, I felt it was okay. Like in Dark Souls 1, it's new, right? Like you're in a new world that's been abandoned essentially by its gods. Do you continue, right? Whereas Dark Souls 3, it's like it's not just been abandoned. This world has continued on. It's not working, right? Like you're looking around. This is a world that's dying. Do you let it die? Is essentially the question.
Yeah.
And in Elden Ring, it's in the form of, I'm not saying I am a great reader. I'm not saying I am a great story understander, or I can tell the minute details of different authors or different storytellers or something. But it feels like the more you dip into Elden Ring, you can feel George R.R. Martin's signature in some places, right?
Wait, is he involved in the making of it?
Yeah, he actually worked with the world building of this game. It's George R.R. Martin and
Whoa.
FromSoft. Yeah.
That's so I never knew.
Yeah, it's even cooler because he actually finished this one.
Damn.
Sorry, I
I
have a whole gripe.
I saw a Twitter post from IGN or something that was like, George R.R. Martin says he wished that Game of Thrones went on for 10 seasons. And I'm like, well, it didn't. It sucks.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. That's crazy in George R.R.
I wonder
Martin.
whose fault that was.
Yeah, it's almost as if people have to finish things and do other stuff.
The only reason I asked that question was because as you were describing the different ending, how that story can wrap up, I was like, damn, that sounds a lot like Dark Souls, man.
Yeah, it does. I think the options that are there are a lot like Dark Souls. It feels different because it's in the frame of conflict. This is a warring area. What's the right answer?
Whereas in Dark Souls, everything's already gone to shit.
Yeah. Like in Dark Souls 3, it's everything's already gone to shit. Do you let it continue? But yeah, so again, and I think truthfully, this is going to be a lot of people's first time playing a FromSoft game. This is a very, very ideal story to tell. These options are very new to people, and I think they're perfect.
It's an ideal story to tell if you can decipher it.
If you can decipher it. Yeah, you're going to have to get through that slog. I think it's a lot better as a first story than Dark Souls 1. I hated Dark Souls 1 because of how unrefined it felt for some of the story beats. It really felt like you had to... It's not hidden out of view on purpose. It felt like it was straight up just gone.
I mean, I don't know. Some of the stuff you were talking about with Elden Ring, the 2 fingers versus the 3 fingers, I was like, that's literally just Framped and the other guy, whatever his name is.
Yeah, that stuff's fine. But it's some stuff's about Lord Gwyn, right? Or something like that. Of trying to understand the psyche of why he did what he did. Versus Queen Marika versus Queen Marika's other persona, Radahn, or Radahn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, huge spoiler: they're the same person.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know who those are.
Queen Marika and Radahn. Queen Marika is the vassal for. Okay, it's a whole story. They're the vassal for the Golden Order. They are the chosen. They're the Jesus to God for the world, essentially. Right?
And the Mary.
And the Mary. It's really weird. But it makes for if you dig into it, it makes for a really compelling understanding of why each persona did what they did. Persona. Anyway.
Why is sex appeal red? Was she on her period?
No, it was me proving, emphasizing a point to Colin.
She's on her Scarlet Rod.
I told you it should have been blue.
For Ronnie? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Hold up. I'll fix it.
You're gonna send pictures of whoever we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. If I have to do that, then hold up. Let me get up. I'm huddled in the corner.
The
What's
four-handed
that
maiden.
one bitch that you took ages to be called?
Melania?
Melania.
Yeah.
I try to call her Melania a lot, and I know that's wrong.
So this is Melania. Matt, great shit, great. So as we're talking, this game overall has mad sex. It compared to other FromSoft games, because like what Dark Souls 1 had what Guinevere, Gwen,
Yeah.
not Guinevere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guinevere. That was the first inside joke of like the thing with amazing chest ahead.
Yeah.
Shout out to that.
Damn, were they right?
What's just ahead?
So in the game Elden Ring, you can leave comments. I think you've seen it sometimes if you see me play the game. Like they're on the ground. There's these like words that you
The
can.
blood stains.
Yeah, there's blood stains and then also like white marks. The blood stains are just how people die. You'll see like a shadow of a person and them dying. But you can also like pass by a comment, press a button to read it, and it'll show like a comment that someone left behind, right? Now the whole point is that the game doesn't let you free type the comments. It's pre-selected words that you can choose, right? So as not to have any like bad words or like, too revealing stuff, So you have to try and communicate with the limited amount of words it has. In Dark Souls 1, there was a lot of inside jokes that came out of it. So one of the jokes is amazing chest ahead, and it's Guinevere. This like, I guess, what is it? Like a demigod? It's a royal bloodline person.
She's like a princess and like a demigod, and she's
She's
also like a giant.
big-tittied.
like her titties are the size of you.
Yeah, like she's straight up just a giant, right?
Of me personally?
Like the player's what? 6 feet?
I don't
Oh,
5'10". Like the size of the player, like the size of the person in the game. Yeah. So the inside joke was you'll see a comment and it says "amazing chest ahead," and you see her. And there's like a bunch of stuff like that. But anyway, point being, like Dark Souls 1 had that, just the one like Guinevere. Dark Souls 3 had no one. Everyone was sickly. Sickly and not only sickly, just sickly and
very angry.
Yeah. No one was happy.
Collectively
was
across like Demon Souls through Dark Souls 3, you had like 3 women.
Well, not just. I think there were some like more women. It's just
there are more women if you include like the bestial bosses. Like
it's not even women. It's just 3 people who seem attractive. Cause like Gwyn is not attractive.
the Lord of Cinder.
The one that literally sets fire to himself. Not very attractive. So what we got? I have to pull up the image of. So there's Finger Maiden, or not Finger Maiden. Sorry, it's
yeah, pull up the Finger Maiden. Pull it up.
No, I don't think I will.
Dark Souls 1 had, or not Dark Souls. Demon Souls had who? What was her?
Fuck, what's her name? She's just like the quest. It's not the quest maiden, but it's
which? No, Maiden Black.
Maybe.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah, her. Yeah, she's great. She's cool. She's like a maiden you get in the game. So Dark Souls has a theme that you are summoned or helped by a maiden, right? Just the series. FromSoft usually has. So Elden Ring kind of breaks that by starting off the game being like, "Ha, you ain't got no maiden, you bitch ass. You ain't got nothing."
And then you play for half an hour, and it's like, "I'll be your maiden."
And it's like this person that's like, I'll pretend to be your maiden. We just gotta go this place. I need to do something real quick. So can you just kind of do that real quick? So Demon Souls had this one. Dark Souls 3 had what was it? Firekeeper? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Her. Dude. Listen.
Yeah, she bad.
She's okay.
No, you don't understand. She's the only person in this game that just is nice to you. She's literally the only person in the game. There's Henri, who's another warrior, and she's amazing. Like, hold up. Henri, her. She's so spectacular. She's So she's
You're only
such a
saying
shrewd-
that because her armor covers more than her breasts.
No, I say that because she's a genuine badass character. She's like, if you weren't the hero, she's the hero of the story. Like, and there's an option to like quote unquote wed her, but it involves stabbing her through the heart. Never mind. Anyway,
All right.
As all good marriages, you know.
yeah, it's a whole thing. But Henri as a
There's a
person.
statement to be made here on masculinity.
Anyway, but Henri as a person is amazing because she genuinely cares for you and her friends, her other friends, right? And she's so cool, and she's the only other person that's nice to you. But she gets killed one way or another in that game, period. And it's very awful. It's sad. She stays with you the whole time, and she like has these like thoughts with you about like deciding, hey, we're continuing this rule of like letting this fire continue. Is that truly right? Like, is this what you wish? Like stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, she's great. She does like she responds to you depending on like what salutes you do. So you can like bow to her and she bows to you. You can like say hello to her and she waves at you. There's a whole thing. Anyway, she's great. Great character. Yada yada yada.
Bloodborne. You got Pale Doll and Maria.
Sekiro. You have Emma.
Emma.
She does nothing.
She
exists.
She exists, and then if you choose wrong, she tries to kill you.
She doesn't, Colin. She doesn't try. If you choose the wrong option, she will murk you many times. She's very strong. She has no character behind her at all. She's just a placeholder character.
She watches over the child.
You know who's a great attractive person in Sekiro? The freaking woodworker. Until he becomes literally the most horrible enemy in the game.
What?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
The
who
worst
you're
boss
talking
ever.
This guy, the sculptor,
Oh. Yeah.
the one-handed sculptor. He's great.
You said woodworker, and I was like,
Sorry, he
Yeah.
works with like wooden sculptures, so I was
Yeah.
like woodworker.
yeah,
Anyway.
fuck the demon of hatred. Spoilers.
Anyway.
Sekiro spoilers, apparently.
Anyway, other stuff. So back to Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring has so many characters. I'm gonna start. So there's Ronnie, the person that you do end up with in Elden Ring, if you choose like a specific ending. This is her. This is not her. This is a doll that she took form in. Her spirit took form in. She gave up her mortal body for like actual story-related reasons of like why she had to escape or how she could possibly escape the rule of the Golden Order to like go against it. Yada yada yada. But you do like a ceremony in which you propose to her like essentially like mortal doll that she has to like keep a connection to the mortal realm. This is the only character, like this is the only way you see her. She has this outfit. It's really cute. It's really fire. She based this outfit on her teacher because she really loved her teacher. It's really cool. You should see her storyline. Everything here, as I scroll down, gets more and more sexualized, so I'm going to move on.
Do it, coward.
Yeah. Anyway, she's great. You end up genuinely like marrying her as a what's it called?
Outcome.
No. She calls you a specific term.
Consort.
Not
Consort.
Consort. Yeah, it's consort. So that's cool. She's great. Shout out to her. There's dude, what's the guy's name? Freaking
So many guys.
the dude with the
Malekith.
hat. No, the dude with the
Santa.
No. The
Dude with
dude
the hat.
inside the shrine region, like the shrine area, like the original like
The Pope.
no, like the shrine area, like the base, your home base in Elden Ring. I forgot the name of it.
Oh, the round table.
Round table, thank you. He's in the round table when you go past into the huge courtyard that you fight that random invader in. But if you turn to the right, you see a dude in a witch hat, who's sitting down.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Mm.
You can look at Blades.
Blade. Oh my god. Is that how you spell Blade?
2 D's.
Blade. It's Blade. Blade.
It's Blade, but
Blade,
it's
Blade,
Welsh. It's a Welsh.
Blade. He's cool. He's great. Badass. Great guy. You know, he's a comrade. You've gone through thick and thin together. You look each other like stargazed at each other's eyes as you both try and do what Ronnie's request is. He's a retainer for Ronnie. He does everything. He does everything because he genuinely believes in Ronnie's mission. There's a tragic story that ends up unfolding because he was originally sent by people who are against Ronnie. Yada yada yada. And he doesn't want to be forced to do it, so he ends up going berserk in order to resist trying to harm Ronnie, and you end up having to kill him. It's very sad. It's a very sad story. He's great though. Truly a wonderful dude.
Alexander.
Oh, yes.
If you want to talk about sex appeal.
If you want to talk about sex appeal, we can't go without talking about my man, the pot. Literally just a clay pot. And yet this man has
He's such a
more
gentleman.
in me. He's such a gentleman, dude. He has such strong convictions, even though he's afraid all the time. He still wants to become like a really great person. And so much about him is so great. And he also ends tragically. I hate it. Whatever. Anyway, there's a bunch of others. There's the actual maiden that you meet. Melina. She's great. She's cool. She helps you out. She's like, hey, bitch, give me a free ride. And you're like, I bet. And she's like, yeah. And then at the end of it, when like you take her to the place that she knows she needs to go, she's like, oh, I'm supposed to help you become the new Elden Lord by freeing the path that you're supposed to do. And it requires her burning herself and the spirit, because her spirit represents like one part of the Erd Tree, as she realizes as she gets there. It's very sad, because you had to sacrifice her, and you've kind of grown a small bond as you like continue to like go with her. If you go against that, so one of the enticements for the chaos option is that you don't have to burn her, you just burn yourself, so she gets to live. But if you go against that, and this is a frame from the ending, she devotes her life to killing you because she literally hates you. Because not only did you deny her her one true purpose in life, you also did something who, in like her beliefs, is truly the worst of options. Anyway, that's Melania. She's cute. Great time. There's side characters like Roderica. Oh, stop. Look at her. Look at her. She's so great. She helps you with spirits.
He could go on.
No, seriously, this full honesty, Elden Ring has the most sex appeal for all types of people in any of FromSoft's games. Have I showed you here? Hold up. Have I showed you guys the freaking these images of like
I think you sent a couple before.
Yeah, of like one fan basically wrote like modern day versions like with attire of like all the characters that are like really popular. All the like women characters that are really popular. And they're all like, it's great. Fia literally hugs a doll. It's great. It's so cute. Stop. It's this game makes you feel loved and then takes it away. Like, it's so painful. The game will like make you feel like you're a sack of shit, and then gives you like a person to like be like, hey, you're loved, and you're like, oh, that's great, and then they take them away from you, and you're like, oh, I hate you, game. And they're like, no, it's okay, we got you this one. And you're like, that doesn't make it better, but fine. And they're like, psych, we took this one away too.
It's like the meme I sent in D&D.
Yeah, it's just more trauma.
Stay
Damn.
away, DM. You bring trauma. Oh, I also bring presents. Oh, cool. It's more trauma. Damn it.
Anyway, I really love it. Great. 20 out of 10 sex appeal.
Which brings us.
Concluding thoughts. Does anyone, after hearing all the different sections, have any question for me before I give the concluding thoughts on any section at all, or anything they want to remind me.
I think you're good.
But this game isn't perfect. I think in many ways the game set out to do what it wanted to do, and I think it delivered exactly when I thought it would deliver. So from a perspective of like hype before to enjoyment after, I think it's fine. This isn't like No Man's Sky or like Cyberpunk or something like that, where it's like I feel genuinely underwhelmed at the output. I think even from the parts that I found annoying or just found wrong, it's not a game that ruined my expectations. Like having my expectations, they weren't ruined, essentially. And that's from an objective viewpoint, not considering my own personal appeal of the game. So from that standpoint, I think it's a perfectly wonderful AAA title that actually released this year. Like how many AAA titles released this year? Can anyone tell me the ones that released? Horizon Forbidden West? Anyone else?
Splatoon comes out in a couple weeks.
Shut the anyone want to tell me a real AAA title that came out? Splatoon. Okay.
Shut up, Nintendo.
Pokemon.
You're a kid now, you're a squid now, motherfucker. Look at him trying to justify Splatoon as a AAA title. The motherfucker, have you seen the guy, the spokesperson for Splatoon? He's cringe as shit.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it's
cringe.
Nintendo.
Anyway, anyone want to tell me any other AAA game that came out this year?
Came out past tense.
Yeah. Or is coming out. Fine. I'll add that in too. Pokemon? Sure. Yeah, Pokemon will really give Elden Ring a run for its money.
You say that semi-sarcastically, but I think Pokemon fans
Semi?
I think Pokemon
Semi.
fans might surprise you.
Pokemon fans ate the same game for 10 years straight. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and
They will
this,
not surprise me.
and this one you can play slightly differently.
You can walk
they will
around
not
it.
This game has
You can walk around in a different order.
This game has different graphics. You can bike with your friends.
Colin, you can say many sentences about the new Pokemon game come out, but you can never say.
I didn't say
is
better.
Pokemon
I
fan-
didn't say better. I said
No.
different.
I don't even care if you say better. What you can't tell me is Pokemon fans will surprise me. They will not. They will eat the game up.
Yeah, but they'll come out in more droves. And Elden Ring, everyone will be like, Elden Ring who?
Yeah, that sounds exactly like Pokemon fans. Any other AAA titles that are coming
Every
out?
Elden Ring fan will refund the game on Steam because they have less than 2 hours of playtime.
fair.
God of War.
Did not come out this year.
It's coming out.
Oh no,
this
is
year.
it?
It's coming
I
out.
thought
It's
it was
coming
delayed
out
till
it's coming-
2023.
No, I think it's coming out the same week as Pokemon.
What's Pokemon doing?
Pokemon's just like, God of War who? We're Pokemon.
Pokemon's just winning.
You could technically argue that The Last of Us comes out in a week, but
No, that
Shut
doesn't
up.
count. I think God of War Ragnarok is a decent contender. I think that's just kind of because it's the only one. Horizon Forbidden West, I think, is a genuine contender. I think the fact that they released it at the same time
it
kind of
would
sucks
be
for
if
Horizon.
anyone played it.
But other than that, I think those are the only two big major games that everyone knows that came out. Stray, it's not a AAA.
Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Yeah. Dude, the Game Awards are about to be barren this year, bro.
I think it'll be. I mean, they don't restrict themselves to just AAA, so I think that they'll have enough to parse through.
I hope so.
Like, let's see. What have I played this year?
Literally only the majority of games I played are indie titles, and Elden Ring and Rise. I still haven't gotten far in Rise.
Pokemon Legends came out this year.
Legends Arceus?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It did.
It came out January, yeah.
Yeah.
I would. That's not even close to a contender. I'm gonna be real.
Not a contender for game of the year. Kirby and the Forgotten Land definitely, I think, should win best like family game. That game was really
okay.
good.
I see your point.
That
Anyway,
game's really good.
we're tangentially.
No. I'm
This
still
game-
looking through my list. Hold on. Neon White, game of the year.
This game
Multiverses,
came out this year.
game of the year. Sorry.
It didn't.
Sorry.
It multiverses. Oh, sorry. Anyway,
Now with Morty.
this game came out this year, and I think it doesn't have much competition. So for the act of game of the year, I think it's gonna win. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of set in stone. I'll be
I think
genuine.
for game.
I think it'll
when
be
does,
a nice surprise if it doesn't win. Maybe God of War Ragnarok will take it due to recent, like
When
the
does-
recency bias.
Right, recent. That's a hell of a drug. When does
Yeah.
Ragnarok come out?
Supposedly
what's-
November.
November.
It might
Yeah,
have, but like Sam said, it might
I
have been
don't-
delayed.
Right. I don't know what the cutoff is for
This-
Game Awards.
I know
think
they cut
can't
off.
release it this-
Yeah, I know the cutoff was like a couple, like years ago. They was like, "Hey, we're not going to do Smash Ultimate because that game came out
Right.
today."
Yeah, it came out in 2018, but they were
Yeah.
just like, it came out like the last 2 weeks of 2018. So
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, well, best fighting game 2019. There you go.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think if it'd be like interesting, it'd be nice. I won't hold it against it if something else wins, but I think it's kind of a set in stone. This
never
is gonna win
forget
Game of
that
the Year.
Deathloop won Game of the Year last year. So
Yeah, no, if definitely can win, then this one's definitely winning.
It didn't win Game of the Year. It won like.
no,
soundtrack
it
or-
won Game of the Year.
No, It Takes Two won Game of
It
the
take
Year.
yo, you're so right. You're so right. I'm totally wrong.
That man went on.
Sorry.
That man went on a full spree on that victory speech for Game of the Year. Anyway,
Also deserved. It Takes Two is amazing.
it's a great game.
Yeah.
I say that as if I played it. I don't have a 2.
Yeah, the thing that blew me away was that Deathloop won like action adventure over. There was something last year that definitely deserved it more.
Horizon.
That was not last year.
Damn, that's crazy. When did it come out? Did it come out? I don't
It
know.
came out a week before Elden Ring, believe it or not.
no, I'm talking about the original Horizon.
That came out in like
Dumbass.
27. That released the same like a week before Breath of the Wild.
That's crazy. Who would have thunk?
And Guerrilla Games. Yeah.
Release.
Y'all
Really
gotta
thinking it.
y'all gotta actually delay your game on purpose next time.
Like seriously.
Be like,
Anyway.
hey, we know it was supposed to release today, but we've decided to push it back.
So I'm gonna be honest, and this is genuine. So coming from the heart right now, I think Elden Ring is a flawed game that shows the ambition of the creators, and I think genuinely because of it, that's what makes it one of my favorite games. Like it's that, and also the fact that it almost feels like the game design was designed for me and my specific tastes. I want to be able to explore and find stuff on my own, but also be able to just look stuff up on the internet because I think it's cool to have a community to look stuff up for. I want to have a story that's plain and simple and me being able to find more details in it as I choose to see. But I also want to afterwards go back and look through and see what the actual like heavily detailed lore is there. I want to get good at combat. I want to force myself into a situation where I can prove myself to be better. Having Melania be a personal challenge of mine rather than a challenge set by the game felt so amazing when I finally finished, because it was me. I chose to do it, and I chose to do it on my own. But I don't have to stay doing that. It's not the entire game that I have to do these impossible odds. I can choose to just have, a summon that helps me out and makes a lot of these things a breeze because I just want to go through it. I can choose to have a friend summon in and also make things a breeze and have a fun with like a little co-op and adventure stuff. I love so much, and I hope FromSoft never gets rid of this. The communal aspect of like just seeing other people like die from their bloodstains or just write messages that just don't make sense so much, so many times. It feels like we're just a bunch of dumbasses going through the story together, if that makes sense.
Touch finger
and it feels
butthole.
nice. Yeah, no, it's just a bunch of dumbasses going through this. I think the leveling was like something I just had to get over, and it's fine. It sucks. I was annoyed, but I got over it. I think the annoyances that were there are annoyances that I'm used to in any game I really love. If I can fucking love Breath of the Wild or not Breath of the Wild. See, I even did it. If I can love Skyward Sword as one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, I am very used to having annoyances in my favorite games. I think.
What do you mean you won't pay for a $25 amiibo to be able to warp?
I don't know what about it specifically. I think to me it's an FromSoft game that finally makes the mark of something I want to play through to the end. Truly. Like, I truly had fun from start to finish in my own way, going through the game, and after it just thinking about the times, you know? I haven't felt this much joy in just going through the bullshits of a game since, like, I think The Witcher in, like, 2016. That's insane. I don't know. It felt fun. More than anything else, it felt like a normal game that just had its shit, and I was like, yeah, I had fun. Fuck it. I think it's not for everyone. I think it's the most accessible Elden Ring game. I think Elden Ring, FromSoft game. I think if you're gonna choose a first FromSoft game to play, I'd recommend this or I think this is the most accessible first FromSoft game. Maybe Sekiro if I really wanted to be like, try something that's very tailored and custom, like very combat oriented. But I think this is definitely going to be a lot of people's FromSoft game, like first FromSoft game, and I'm not sad by it. I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting to see people get into like this community of games by trying out this like really, really fun, ballistic option, essentially. I don't know. This is when I was first reviewing it and writing out the whole like script and 2, 4, 6 pages out. I knew at the end of it I wanted to say this is one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. Not because it's the most perfect or complete, but because it feels the most fun to me that I haven't felt in a while. And some sappy shit here or there, some type of non-Trunks fucking ending. But it is actually genuinely one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. This is the FromSoft game I was finally given that I was looking for so long. And I'm kind of happy I got to experience it. I think what I would say that I'm more excited for ever is for Bluepoint, the people that remade Demon Souls to the new version, finally gets a chance to crack at Elden Ring, and they have it with their like extremely optimized and nice new graphical fidelity game engines, so to the point where the game actually runs and looks even more beautiful than it does now. Listen, when that game comes out, when that remake comes out, it's a wrap for the industry in general. It's done. They did it. They solved the gaming industry. It's gonna be great. I look forward to it.
You say that like the Bloodborne remake won't break the world.
That's true.
It's coming. I have faith.
I know. If it does come out, I'll definitely have to pick that up.
Every time I get reminded that Bloodborne was released at 30 FPS, it just kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah, I feel it. So I'm actually really there's a bunch of rumors that Demon Souls is coming to PC, and I'm really looking forward to playing it on PC.
It's really good.
Anyway, concluding thought, this game is top 5 of all time. This game has literally been almost abusive to me. Almost. I have felt emotions that I haven't felt in so long playing this game. Just making me break down and cry at the fact that a character is willing to give me a hug after all I've endured in that game. I don't know. It's a fun experience. I think to to FromSoft veterans, it's a fun experience. If definitely flawed, not perfect, but fun. I think for a lot of first timers, it's the closest way you're gonna get to an easy entrance. And I think to me, it's one of the games that I'll remember for years on end. When I think back to the time that I finally conquered Melania, or got a hug from a character, or beat the Elden Lord with no healing items and barely any health remaining. It's great. It's a fantastic game. 10 out of 10. Would play again.
Good shit.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm done. I want to drink some water. I want to cuddle with a pillow, because I feel lonely and Fia's not here to hug me. So
I think it's really cool that you can go through like the collective 5 hours of this recording, and like have like all those like super valid complaints and criticisms, and at the end still be like, yeah, it's still one of my favorites, like despite those, or that kind of just acknowledging that, you know, just because it's one of your favorites doesn't mean it has to be quote unquote perfect.
yeah, I think that was interesting when I was a kid. I don't know, Colin, a couple of years back, or not even a couple, like recently I've been beginning looking back at like reviews I left in my computer of like anime I've watched or video games I've played back when me, you, Matt, and the others would like talk about shit like that. And it really felt like at a certain point in time in high school, our obsession was trying to find something that was objectively perfect. You know what I mean? Like something that is not great, it just doesn't have flaws. You know, there was nothing that was like a huge smirk on its like, or blemish on its reputation. Whereas like nowadays it feels like, I don't know, it's fine. It can have like game breaking bugs. It can have like ridiculous stutter that I absolutely like infuriates me trying to play it. It can be a show with absolutely terrible plot, or a show that has amazing plot and just terrible amounts of horny in it. But that doesn't make it like a reason for me to love it any less, you know? I don't know. Me shouting at the sky.
No, I hear you.